have entered the PM Entertainment Podcast.
Welcome to an all-new episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast, the show that gets as giddy as a schoolboy who had to infiltrate a gang headed up by a chubby Corey Feldman looking like what might happen if 70s Elvis was a teenager because he killed my brother and I must avenge his death in the form of a local tournament of martial arts at the thought of talking about those purveyors of fine nonsense and superior action for an all-too-brief, glorious spell of the late 80s and the decade that followed. I refer, of course, to the power duo of random yet somehow brilliant casting, glossy night shots, and breakaway windows. It's Rick Pepin and Joseph Merry of PM Entertainment. I'm your host, John Cross, and don't forget, if you like the show, please remember to rate and review us on any of the podcasting platforms that you use. In fact, I recently just put out a social media post that lists all the podcast platforms that you can actually rate, review, comment, like all that stuff on, because you can't on all of them. So please refer to our social media for that. And obviously, if you want us to go from strength to strength, we promise that as the show grows, we will grow. I think I put in that social media post yesterday that we are looking to do merch. We'd like to do more video content, etc., etc. There's some stuff we'd love to do, but we need the show to really take off. It's doing pretty well right now, but you can help us by rating, reviewing, liking, sharing our Facebook posts, commenting, and all that good stuff. And don't forget, you can always contact us via our email, pmentpod@gmail.com, pmentpod@gmail.com, or call us if you wish, and leave us a voicemail at 347-669-0053. That's 347-669-0053. Well, this week, we're in all new territory for me as we plunge, prepared as ever, and yet never sure exactly what we might get, into the PM Entertainment subgenre known as Ted Jan Roberts' world. The world right now might seem like a dangerous place, but it was none so dangerous as when PM Entertainment thought, let's slam Karate Kid, with which it also shares the shooting location of the Cobra Kai dojo, Rad, Stand By Me, and No Retreat, No Surrender into some kind of giant vat. Add a dash of Feldog here, a soupçon of martial art Teague there, a smattering of Erin Gray, and an unnecessary dollop of Dick Van Patten, and then serve it up on a bed of gorgeous Ken Blakey cinematography and the luscious synth orchestral horror movie soundtrack stylings of Jim Halfpenny. Was the film a tasty treat for the senses, a gut-rotting mixture of madness, or just a dangerous place from which we hope to extricate ourselves from? Well, you will have to listen to find out. It's from 1994. It's directed by Jerry P. Jacobs, who was best known as a second unit and assistant director on many PM flicks, from CIA Codename Alexa through to Lion Strike or Ring of Fire 3. It's written by Sean Dash, who started his life with Joseph and Rick writing The Newly Deads for City Lights Entertainment, which is out now on Blu-ray from terra-vision.com. Go pick that up. And who now seems to make the kind of natural disasters, prehistoric monsters, and true crime documentaries that clutter up cable channels and random third-tier streaming sites because seemingly people can't get enough of how horrible everything is and has always been. I wish there was a cable channel that only played PM Entertainment movies. Am I right? Can I get a whoop whoop? Anyway, the martial arts and fight choreography is from the wonderful and legendary Art Camacho, and the stunts from Cole S. McKay. The soundtrack is by Jim Halfpenny, who was the composer for Quiet Fire, Bikini Summer 2, the Magic Kid movies, No Escape, No Return, Skyscraper, Riot, Little Bigfoot 2, The Journey Home, that's my personal favorite, Running Red, I tell you, the PM force is strong with this one. And while not a PM film, it's already been mentioned before on the podcast. And so I love it when something keeps coming up like a bad penny or maybe a bad half penny. See what I did there? That's right. Old Jim here also did the score to Zipperface. That's right. Answers in an email how Zipperface came up before on the podcast, and maybe I'll send you a prize. Or maybe I won't. It's a turbulent time. Anyway, it's a dangerous place, and it stars the elusive hermit, king of the disappearing act, but martial arts child prodigy who I can't help think could have had a wonderful career because he's not that terrible, and who lists his other works on IMDb as TV commercial for Milton Bradley's Simon, Ted Jan Roberts. All right. Our guest this week is a returning champion, a Moxie fanatic, a Maine native, a Philly fan and dweller, an educated ruminator on all things action, a swashbuckling archaeologist of forgotten and questionable films from the video store era and the bowels of obscure streaming sites, a blogger, a podcaster, a damn fine fella, and of course, a monocle-wearing, velveteen robe-having, pinky finger-raising while drinking teaing direct-to-video connoisseur. He may have a French name, but I assure the wary out there, he is most definitely American. He's the one, the only, and really you wish there were a lot more like him. It's the fabulous Matt Perea, sir. It's a joy to have you back.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back as well. Thank you for that. Thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate that.
What about that introduction, sir? There's a lot going on in this. So, as you have been on the show before, I no longer need to ask you your credentials for PM Entertainment because anyone can go back and listen to the previous episode we did with you. So let's now talk more about you, sir. Let's talk about the direct-to-video connoisseur show and blog that you've been doing low this many years. Also, let's talk about the novels you write. Let's just talk about you in general. So, and see how it's all going. What have we got coming up on the DTV connoisseur? In either what have we had happen, and what have we got coming up in the future weeks?
Yeah, I mean, so you were on recently for a fantastic episode, one that had so much material that I was able to cut it into 2 episodes. So I recently released the Bedroom Eyes 1 and 2, kind of the main conversation that we had, which was just absolutely amazing. Talking about Kip Gilman, Wings Hauser. Our plan for what the sequels would be, where you came up with probably one of the best ideas. And so the whole thing, we for a movie, 2 movies that really didn't make a lot of sense. We had a lot of fun trying to make sense of them. So it was a great episode. Yeah. But then the extra stuff that we had, I mean, all kinds of stuff that was in there. I mean, we had bits on crazy guys at the bar. You got a great email, a spam email for somebody who wanted to be on your show, which was fantastic. And then, I mean, like the video store conversation too. So we'll definitely plug Be Kind Movie Vault, your video store, because we mentioned that too. And a great hipster in Brooklyn who gives it to a reporter who mentions Blockbuster. So a lot of really fun stuff there. And it's like, it just kind of worked as its own episode. So that'll be coming up soon. So people should definitely, subscribe to the podcast. Cause like I said, you've been on, we try to go weekly, and we have all kinds of fun conversations that we, about these kind of movies.
Yeah. And I feel like if people love PM Entertainment, then there is so much in your show that they would love. If you want sort of further listening or homework or whatever you want to call it, we've talked Cynthia Rothrock movies. We've talked on the Dragon Wilson movies. I know that you've been on with the Comeuppance guys who were on our show for the first episode, talking about the Sweeper. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same kind of stuff. I've got to imagine that if you are aware of PM Entertainment, you're aware of all that kind of straight-to-video action stuff from the 80s and 90s. And that's your bread and butter, along with, obviously, erotic thrillers and sci-fi stuff and other sort of tangential direct-to-video genres, right?
Yeah, well, so what happened was that when I started the direct-to-video connoisseur, which one of the things I learned very quickly is that connoisseur takes a lot of work to spell. I mean, kind of like what you were talking about, the ascot and everything. I wanted this image of like an Alistair Cook type, but only watching Dolph Lundgren movies. That was the joke. But then right. it was 2 things. One was the fact that it was hard to spell. So when I would have to tell people the name of the site, it would take a long time to spell it. But the other thing is that angry directors, when I killed their movies, would make some crack about me being a connoisseur, like I wasn't doing it tongue in cheek. They'd be like, "Oh, you're Mr. Connoisseur. Well, you missed it or whatever." So that was the other piece about me being a connoisseur. But originally it was supposed to be all genres, and then what I discovered, and I think is kind of similar to with the PM podcast as well, is that there aren't a lot of people talking about low budget direct to video action. And so, like, for example, if I posted a horror movie, it would be in this ecosystem with dozens of horror blog sites. Whereas for the action stuff, as I posted a PM Entertainment movie, people will be like, "Hey, you got to watch this other PM Entertainment movie with Gary Daniels," or, and they were just so excited to see that kind of content that the genre is kind of skewed, the whole site kind of skewed into being more action. I am trying to get into more other stuff. So that's like, you coming on to talk erotic thrillers. I think erotic thrillers were a big part of why I got into direct-to-video stuff. And so I'm kind of doing a little bit more of that stuff, but the action bread and butter is always going to be there. And I mean, PM Entertainment, I mean, I've done about 47 PM films on the site so far, and I want to try to get as many as possible. I mean, I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon. So.
No, exactly. And, no, that's why I like the PM Entertainment podcast. It lives in this sweet ecosystem. A lot of the same guys, whether it's Exploding Helicopter, Bulletproof Action, you guys, the Action Elite, my new friend Charlie Chase, who was on the Zero Tolerance episode from the
Nice.
Give Me Back My Action and Horror Movies podcast, and the B Action podcast, which is part of that same feed. So it's nice. I feel like we are... Again, we're not trying to compete. We're trying to collaborate. We want all those guys to come on here in the same way that they do with you. Comeuppance Reviews, of course. Everyone should be checking out Comeuppance Reviews. I mean, really, Comeuppance Reviews and your site, between the two of them, if there is a B-movie action or, thriller genre film that you guys haven't covered, I'd be, between the two of you, I'd be pretty surprised. They've been doing it 20 years, or close to. So, and then they'll be coming back on the show. So lots of good content coming up. Do you have any other podcasts in the bag yet, or are you still prepping the next few episodes?
So actually, speaking of Ty, I did my monthly hit with him. So we have him on once a month to talk about two newer direct-to-video, straight-to-streaming movies. And so the rule that we have is we just essentially pick anything that's available to both of us for free or part of our streaming packages. So the one we've got coming up here, it is it was two that were on the platform Zumo. Which neither of us had checked out before. So one of them was Taken at Rio Bravo, which has Don the Dragon Wilson, Cynthia Rothrock in small roles, but it's directed by this guy, Alexander Nevsky.
The scourge of straight-to-video action.
Exactly.
Nevsky. He so tricks me into thinking his movies are going to be good just by being like, oh my God, look who we got in his films.
Yes.
And, it's a Western, or it's like a Eastern European thriller or something. And you're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Or Showdown in Manila. I'm a big Philippines movie fan. I'm like, yes, let's go back to Manila and make some mad grindhouse movies. And then you watch them and you go, oh, he must be a fan of these people. Like, he must have seen, the movies that we love to talk about and the movies we love to watch. Just hard to replicate them, I guess. And look, Nevsky, he keeps doing it, so he's clearly getting money from somewhere. And hallelujah for that, because if you want to keep hiring these guys, they all deserve to still be working, so I'm not going to knock them too much. But anyway, yeah, go ahead. I interrupted.
Well, no, so so that's spoiler alert. We probably it's another Nevsky movie. It's exactly what you'd think it would be. But then the other one we did, it was another Zumo film called 12 to Midnight with Robert Bronzi. So yeah. Robert Bronzi, the guy who looks like Charles Bronson, but also one of the things we've noticed is that they're starting to take his movies and make the titles sound like Bronson movie. So this one, instead of 10 to midnight, is 12 to midnight. It also has werewolves.
It's 2 minutes earlier.
Exactly.
It's precisely 2 minutes earlier than the movie. Instead of, what's funny is 12 to midnight sounds like a sequel, but actually, if according to the clock, it's a prequel by 2 minutes.
Exactly. It's 48 after as opposed to 50 after. Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's that was actually more of a fun time. There's like a running joke throughout the movie where people say, "Hey, you look familiar," and he's like, "I get that all the time," So, and of course, he's actually from Hungary, whereas Bronson, I think, is just of Hungarian descent, but grew up in the States. So his English isn't good. So a lot of times it's like all the other actors around him have to kind of do all of his lines for him because he has to be the strong silent type in order to get
what they need to do is they need to get a Bronson impersonator to be like, hey, I get that all the time. You know what I mean? They need to get a Bronson impersonator to do the are you cooking chicken? I like chicken. You need a Bronson guy to come in and do the voice. I don't do a great Bronson, but you get the idea.
No, it's good. No, because it's exactly like that's one of the jokes on the podcast because Ty was doing his Bronson impression. I was like, they should just dub your voice out, or whatever. It would make more sense. And you could just have him speaking Hungarian for his lines, maybe,
right.
Because it's just do the old tower. What do they call it? The Tower of Babel approach. In Italian movies, right, where they would just, I mean, most European movies or Asian movies that cast an American lead or a British lead or some international figure. Most of them, when they're recording on set, they're not recording the sound that we all hear. Right. Cynthia Rothrock famously says about making Hong Kong films. Most of the time, she had a few lines, but most of the time she was just saying whatever she wanted, and they dubbed her in later. Right, exactly. Yeah. So, that would probably be a better way to go. But the other thing is that movie, 12 to Midnight, was filmed near here. It was like a kind of northeastern Pennsylvania, but it was filmed near this area called Centralia, which is apparently there's been an underground fire there for decades. There was a coal mining area. The coal caught on fire, so they had to move people out of there. And so I think there's maybe 3 people that live there still at this point, because everybody else has left. And so, but essentially, the ground's on fire underneath you. You don't what kind of gases it is. Yeah.
And you said there's werewolves in it, so it's
so the movie has werewolves. Yeah, just out of nowhere. Just by the way, we've got werewolves in this movie. So
okay, so it's not a serial killer thriller then, right?
It looks like they started off as a serial killer thriller, and then and the werewolf kind of looks like the Morbius. What's his that Jared Leto. So it's their trips. So that episode should come sometime in May.
Great.
So yeah,
awesome. Okay, fantastic. And let everyone know as well where they can find you and about your illustrious literary career, because you are an author of some note and some proliferation. You're a prolific author is what I'm trying to say. Why don't you just say that, John, instead of being a flouncy idiot? Yeah.
That's all right. No, so my site is at dtvconnoisseur.blogspot.com. And so that's where you can find links to everything. But my author page, it's I think it's MatthewPoirierAuthor.com, but you can also go on Amazon and find me on Amazon because all my books are on Amazon. I've got 5 books plus a short action novel, Bainbridge. And so my most recent book is Nadia and Aiden. And so that's it's like a shorter novel based off these two, or it's about these fraternal twins from France whose mother is American. And they decide to visit America. It takes place in 2008, but they want to get in touch with their American heritage, and they travel around the country. It is a little bit pertinent to today, even though it takes place in 2008. The politics are similar. You can kind of see some of the things that germinate in 2008 that kind of sprout in 2016, 2024, that kind of thing. So I think it's worth checking out. It's told in a dual first-person narration style that because the twins, they kind of trade off talking, and so it's a little bit on that kind of experimental side compared to my other novels that are a little bit more just straight ahead, just literary fiction. And again, all of it's on. That one's the easiest one to find on Amazon. Actually, if you type in Nadia and Aiden on Amazon, it'll pop up right away. So,
and Bainbridge is your action novella, right? Your little action thing, which a lot of people in this who like this show will love. Bainbridge. Also, go pick Bainbridge up as it's a smaller book. Why not pick up both and just enjoy both? I mean, pick up all of them. I own all of them, and I just want everyone else to own all of them because why not? And they all have new covers as well. So some of the ones I have do not have the new covers. Some of them do, but some of them don't. So go get some of the new covers. It's fantastic. All right. Well, that's wonderful, Matt. So now, as you know, before we get into the film, it's time, as always, for the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
It's the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
All right. It's not a long one, this one, but a fun one, I think. So here we go. We have Grand Theft Auto, the teen years, a car driving through a window, 3 dirt bikes driving through a window, dirt bike chases, car chases, a very A-team car roll with a cop emerging unruffled, unscathed, but a little bewildered how children got the better of it. He also kicks the car afterwards, which is fantastic. In frustration, I seem to have flipped my car again. Martial arts dojo training sequences, scavenging, which is apparently beach-based karate matches with grown adults who really should know better, breaking and entering, mace to the face, beatings, neck snapping, fake gymnasium teen suicide by hanging, a cafeteria food fight scored like an unofficial Halloween sequel, fisticuffs, gratuitous martial art Teague line reading of the word loser, gratuitous martial art Teague hairy chest and low button silk shirt while teaching the violent totalitarian quotes of Machiavelli to high school children, gratuitous confused Dick Van Patten. What is he doing in this movie? He doesn't know, so why would we? Gratuitous martial arts tournament as a solution for all of society's ills. The obligatory, they clearly skimped on the casting for the detective character, dry, monotone performance. Oversized T-shirts, a fight scene in which Marshall Teague's tight stomach wins against a grown teenage boy's fist without doing very much at all. Lots of martial arts fighting and accompanying noises. Stolen TVs from the Van Nuys swap meet. It's very important where that is happening. Cop and truck chase hindered by said TVs. A ghost solving the crime after a teen in a panel van maces a hobo in the face. And an end credit song named after the film that keeps talking about how their heart is a muscle, but also how that same heart has a hole in it that holds the memory of a face. Sung by vocalist Sharon Shax and written by the aforementioned Jim Halfpenny. Well, sir, this is a romp and a half. As I said in my initial introduction, it combines all sorts of wonderful things, such as Karate Kid, Rad, Stand By Me, and No Retreat, No Surrender. It sort of throws them all into a blender and brings out I have to say, a tasty and enjoyable smoothie. What was your overall thoughts initially on the film, sir? And maybe just give us a hint of the plot as well.
Yeah, so I'll give the hint of the plot is that Ted Jan Roberts, his mother is Erin Gray, and he's got an older brother. The older brother's hanging out with these ne'er-do-wells, the Scorpions, and after they're trying to initiate him, he dies, and they stage the killing to look like a suicide. But Ted Jan Roberts, he's not so sure. That's his brother. He wouldn't do that. So to find out what happened, he gets in with these Scorpions who are led by Corey Feldman, but then really led by Marshall Teague. And so when he goes undercover with them, he starts to learn the reality, but he's not. He feels like his brother might be involved with his brother's killing, but it's not until his brother comes back as a ghost that he actually discovers the truth. And at the end, he is in a dojo that's run by Mako. Marshall Teague, has him set up a tournament between the Scorpions and the Mako dojo. And Ted Jan Roberts shows up and joins the Mako dojo again to fight. And, they fight, the cops show up, there's a chase scene. But eventually, Ted Jan Roberts prevails and everybody lives happily ever after.
Indeed. And that was a wonderful, wonderful plot rundown. So probably one of the best we've had on the show. What was your overall, because I don't like to bury the lead here. Let's just go right into it. I had a ton of fun with this movie. Again, as I said, I went in not knowing what to expect. I'd never entered the realm of Ted Jan Roberts films before. I knew it was there, lurking off in the dusty corner of PM Entertainment Films, beckoning me, going, come watch my films. And me being a complete lunatic, I of course went ahead and purchased almost all of Ted Jan Roberts' PM Entertainment films on VHS. The only one I couldn't find or was too expensive was The Power Within, which I then found on DVD for about $5. I have A Dangerous Place of all of them. Anyone out there looking to do the same and purchase some PM Entertainment films on VHS. Sadly, while Magic Kid 2, and what's the other one that he did? Tiger Heart. They are able to pick up reasonably cheap, between $7 and $12 a tape. But A Dangerous Place. It is the only places I could find it outside of the fact that it's streaming on Tubi are charging over $30 a VHS tape, and I wouldn't normally have stumped that kind of cash or stumped up that kind of cash for something like this, but I don't know. I'm a completist, and I kind of felt like I needed to. I know I'm weird, but that is what it is. Yeah. So I now own all these Ted Jan Roberts films. So this might even become, for a period of time, the Ted Jan Roberts podcast. Although, because based on this first one, I'm like, why not? Yeah. So have you seen any of these before? What was your history with Ted
I had
Jan?
seen this one for the site, and I meant to check before, but I think this is number 12 on my my top 15 PM flicks. It's I think that's what it was. I'm trying to remember. I meant to look it up before we got here, but yeah, I'd seen this one. The only other one I'd seen, well, technically I'd seen Hollywood Safari, because for my site in the late 2000s, that was my last Don the Dragon Wilson one to review. Now, he's since done more films, but also more films were unearthed in the 80s that were kind of added to his bio. But I had to do Hollywood Safari. So those two I'd done. And then also Magic Kid. I did do Magic Kid on the site, which is, if you think this is ridiculous on a kid's movie kind of level, that one's even more so. Like it's much more madcap and goofy than this one is. But that one's got Don the Dragon Wilson playing himself. It takes like the kind of this whole idea of the 80s and not taking care of your kids and puts it on a whole nother level. So that's nice. A different one here. Whereas this one here is a little bit more serious, but like it's a fun PM serious, which makes it, like you said, just like a great time. So I like this one better than that one for sure.
This one hits me right in the sweet spot, because I love. And I think you said it last night because we were chatting back and forth while I was watching it. We both love when PM just can't help but PM. Like even when maybe because they're trying to make like a teen movie or a kids movie, or at least a family friendly, they still can't help but be like, well, our regular viewers, our regular like later teen, early adult action viewers are going to want still some PM in there. So this one, what's odd is that the most shocking scene in the whole film, especially, and people talk about this stuff like now because there's a lot of discussion around child suicide and teenage bullying and especially cyberbullying and stuff like that, as if it's a new thing. It's not a new thing in any way at all. And I remember it being talked about when I was at school and everything else. So the most shocking scene in this movie is Corey Feldman's gang leader has this idea when they mace his older brother in the face and push him down a flight of stairs while they're in the middle of breaking and entering into an old couple's home. He has this idea, well, shit, we got to cover up the fact that we flat out just murdered this kid. And it wasn't by accident. Like, I know later on, like one of the gang members says to Ted Jan Roberts, like, it was kind of by accident. And you're like, it wasn't though. You maced him in the face, beat him in the chest and stomach, and then kicked him down a flight of stairs. Like that's not an accident. It's not like you thought, oh, well, we thought he might get up from that. Oh, well, he didn't. So that's your fault still. I mean, okay, you might tangentially say it's manslaughter, but I mean, really, I don't know. You wanted to like hurt him. There was intention there. Anyway, Corey Feldman, who must be a fucking genius, because the last thing I would think if I just killed a child would be or killed a teenager would be like, wait, if we string him up in the gymnasium, everyone will just think he committed suicide. I think what's most horrific about it is that obviously you see everyone running to the gymnasium at the high school, and they all seem very worried, and the music's like very tense and stuff. And you see Ted Jan Roberts like following with the crowd, and you're like, wait, he's not going to be the one that like witnesses his brother, because something, like they've done something with the dead body. You don't know that they've necessarily staged a hanging, but they've done something. You're like, wait a minute, they're not going to go as far as to have his own like younger brother to like discover him just hanging from a. Oh no, they are, because PM just can't help PMing all over the place, and so it has this wonderful tone between, and a lot of the fights are very, I mean, when Marshall Teague is beating up on the kid because he thinks one of the kids in his dojo is weak, it's they take it to that PM level of it kind of being like, it's not a Karate Kid style Martin Cove style beating, which yes is still violent compared to kids movies today, but it's not, it's not so brutal that you can. This is like PM brutal. This is still when they're 94 is when they're just easing out of more of their grindhousey nature and moving into more of the like glossy action stuff that they would get known for. But like you say, they can't help to throw a few things in that just make you go, wait, this is a kid's film? But then at the same time, have a situation where like a cop car rolls over, which we've seen in multiple PM Entertainment films. And yet instead of it, I don't know, like, blowing up or the guy getting out of it all blooded and battered or gunfire or anything like that, he just gets out of the car, shakes his head off and like kicks the car in frustration, like a scene from the A-Team. So but then there are other scenes in the movie that are most definitely set up to be like, oh, kids having hijinks, so it's tonally, it's exactly where I want my PM Entertainment films to be, because I couldn't sitting here tell you exactly what the tone is. And I'll say one more thing before I hand it back to you, but like the last thing that tonally threw me but also made me laugh with sheer delight was the fact that after he discovers his brother hanging from the basketball hoop in the gymnasium, it cuts to Ted Jan Roberts and Dick Van Patten, 3 named actors at the top of their game, I have to say. And Dick Van Patten, who we've known from like he's the father in Spaceballs, right? Isn't he like? Doesn't he do a lot of like Mel Brooks or a lot of comedy kind of stuff?
Right.
I don't know everything about Dick Van Patten, but isn't he kind of comedically wired?
Right. Well, that, and then he did like 8 is Enough, like this kind of family show. Okay. I think he was like a widower who had 8 kids, and like some woman, like younger, much prettier woman married him. I can't remember how the show worked. Yeah. But yeah, so he did that as well. I mean, there's the whole Van Patten clan as well. He's got kids that do, what was one of the Van Pattens was in the Master Ninja movies.
Okay.
So yeah, I think Timothy Van Patten, something like that. There's another one who does poker. He's like a poker announcer.
I see.
Yeah,
okay, cool. So I think I knew him from Robin Hood, Men in Tights, and Spaceballs.
Right.
So it doesn't quite like slam cut, but it might as well, from his brother hanging in the gymnasium to Dick Van Patten doing his like, I don't know how to handle this as the principal of a high school face. But instead of doing it with like a concerned face, he does it almost as a sort of, how would you do it? Not a comedic double take, but you know what I mean? Like a sort of a comedic, like, eye rolling and like, boy, kind of thing. I can't really, there's not a word for it, but you know what I mean?
Right. It's kind of like it would be like if Dick Van Patten's character was standing on a curb and he watched somebody put their coffee, like a tray of 4 coffees on top of the car and then drive off. And he's just like that's how he's reacting to.
That's how he's reacting to
his brother, to one of his students in his school, hanging them. At this point, he thinks he's hanged. They all think that he's hanged himself in their gymnasium. So that's his reaction. Is it's essentially the same as, what are you going to do? You left your coffees on top of the car. You're having one of those days. It's like.
Well, look, it's fantastic, and it was sort of at that moment that's when I knew that I would enjoy this movie unreservedly, because it so swings wildly between kind of madcap, but at the heart of it having this really rather distressing, like there's even scenes where Ted Jan Roberts just sees his mother just crying hysterically in the kitchen, and you're kind of like, this is like a bleak drama film. And then the next thing, he's palling around with the Scorpions and going undercover and initiating food fights and all that kind of stuff. So it's really an interesting combination, and I enjoyed it a lot for that. I think though, at the center of this film, there's 2 things that this film does I think exceptionally well. One is that you can't help when you see either the Scorpions or Marshall Teague or any of the people that Ted Jan Roberts might square off against in this movie, and see Ted Jan Roberts, who I think I'm right in saying was no more than like 14 or 15 when they made this.
Right.
Like,
he's born in like November of 79, I believe. Because I think I was checking, like he's like right between our age, almost like smack dab in between our ages.
Right. So he the funny thing is this comes out in 94. So I mean, he could even be 13 potentially.
Right.
And so he's not like 18 playing 13 or, he's not like Michael J. Fox, like 25 playing 16 or whatever. He is legitimately like 13, 14. And I think watching the first half of the movie, I'm like, they're never knowing full well that he's got to square off against Feldog and probably some of the other guys in the gang. And maybe even Teague. I was like, is he going to face off against Teague? Because that's going to be ridiculous. He's so small and so skinny and so whatever. You kind of think, well, this is going to be a hard sell. Because again, in my first time watching a Ted Jan Roberts movie, I think what Art Camacho as the fight choreographer does and what Ted Jan Roberts does as clearly a decent martial artist is that they sell the fact that once he goes into martial arts mode, that not only is he incredibly accomplished, because a lot of this stuff is done in really only one or two takes. There aren't a lot of like cutting around. There is more when Corey Feldman fights, I noticed.
Yes.
They do a lot of like, close-ups and cutaways and things when he's fighting. But when Ted Jan Roberts fights and some of the other kids in the school, it's a little more, less cuts. And he is clearly a fantastic kid prodigy martial artist, just based on the movie. And when he lands a kick, they've sold it. They've sold that his kicks would hurt someone maybe 4 or 5 years his senior, and that it would be a believable matchup. And it's it is a little similar with Zabka and Macho in The Karate Kid. It's a little similar because Macho is very small and thin compared to Zabka. I think where this succeeds, and I often feel like, and even in the more recent series of Cobra Kai, where this succeeds and Karate Kid, I think, actually falls a little short, which some people may think is sacrilege or whatever, is that Macho is clearly not a martial artist. And even though he's learned how to do certain things for the film, and maybe he trained a lot and whatever to be in Cobra Kai again or whatever, he's not a natural martial artist. It's not like watching, Art Camacho or Don the Dragon Wilson or Cynthia Rothrock or whatever do this stuff. And Ted Jan Roberts seems like a very natural martial artist. And so I think that the film does a very good job at selling his fighting ability and selling the fact that he would be able to take down someone bigger and physically stronger and bigger than he is. So that was very well done. I think the other ace up this movie's sleeve is 1,000% martial art Teague. I mean, just 1,000%. And he is this wonderful veteran of action movies. Of course, people will know him from, I think, our generation's touchstone for all things amazing, which is, of course, Roadhouse. But he has appeared in an episode of the TV series The A-Team, which, I always consider as a wonderful precursor to PM Entertainment. Knight Rider as well. He appeared in Knight Rider. He goes back to BJ and the Bear, my friend. He was all the way back in there. He's Moonlighting, Hunter. I mean, you name the action TV shows, he's been in it. And then for movies, we've got Roadhouse, Train to Kill. We've got Super Force, Motorcycle Gang, Fists of Iron. So he is an action veteran of the small and the big screen. He's in The Bad Pack, which was the worst film that Doc and I ever reviewed on Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid. And so, listen, he is so exceptional in this film. I mean, just fantastic. Talk to me about martial art Teague, Matt.
Well, I mean, I think we talked about this. This is another area where this movie is better than Karate Kid because Marshall Teague is which again probably sounds sacrilege to say, an improvement on Martin Kove. One of the things Marshall Teague does, I think, from a tonal standpoint in this is that he leans into this idea that any guy, any teacher in particular, who would beat up high school kids in his dojo, which he does, beat them up, but also force them to go out and commit major crimes like robbing, that kind of person would have to be despicable. And he leans into that. Usually when you get a baddie like that in a movie like this, they're kind of scenery chewing, kind of, all that kind of thing. But no, he's a very menacing, evil baddie. And like you talked about, there's that scene where he's got kind of the flouncy silk shirt and he's in the classroom and all the kids are kind of sitting around in kind of a more laid back, library style. And he's talking about Machiavelli and he's talking about how, according to Machiavelli, the prince can do whatever he wants to keep his subjects in line. And he asks Ted Jan Robinson, what do you think of that? And Ted Jan Robinson goes, well, it's good for the prince, but not for the subject. He's like, hey, that's a good answer. I like that, But it's like even when he's doing that, there's this sinisterness of like, I don't want that guy around kids, even if these are like 20 somethings. Cause I think Ted Jan Roberts is probably the only one who's actually a kid. Like everybody else is born in the early 70s. But yeah, and so it adds something to the film as well, because it's like Marshall Teague is this really menacing baddie that while other stuff is happening, whether it's goofiness or like music that shouldn't be played at the same time or cars flipping or all these other things, the moment Marshall Teague steps into a room, and again, like that scene you talked about where he's just standing there and the kid is punching him in the stomach and it's not hurting him. And he's just standing there and selling it just, unironically. He's not like goofing around or anything. He's just like, I'm just going to do it. It just adds a layer to this movie. And I don't know that everybody would go into this role. Because Martin Kove didn't do it in Karate Kid. He did not go into the role saying like, I'm a guy who manipulates and hurts kids, right? He went into the role saying, I'm going to be the big bad sensei baddie. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be kind of the scenery chewing baddie, which is fun. I like that. But Marshall Teague takes it a different way that, for all the stuff that's going on in this movie, it adds this other layer that, again, it adds to what the overall, enjoyment of the film is.
Yeah, he so believes in what his character is saying. Right. There's no hint at any point, even when he's saying lines like, I think at one point, Ted Jan Roberts is trying to get into the dojo with the Scorpions and blah, 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 blah. And Marshall Teague says, what's the line? It's the most ridiculous line in the movie because he says, if you show any mercy or anything, like in the future, the person will not show mercy to you, right?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Which is complete nonsense, because if you show someone mercy, of course they then have in their head, well, he was nice to me that day, I won't fuck him over in the future. But no, Teague doesn't believe that. Teague's like, if you show someone mercy, they will not show you mercy in return. Like if you show mercy, you're dead. Like you are dead, you are done, you are whatever, right? And he says the same thing about hesitation. If you show hesitation, then you are dead. You have died, right? But there's a bit where Ted Jan Roberts quite reasonably turns around and says, actually, if you show mercy, you have turned an enemy into a friend, which is actually kind of more logical. And he goes, well, that's what my sensei says anyway. He says, your sensei must be a loser. And again, this is perfect PM because, an adult of Teague's stature would normally say, well, he must be a fucking arsehole then or something like that. But because it's a kid's movie, it's almost like Sean Dash is writing this movie and he's like, oh, I'm writing this badass character and blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, oh, fuck, it's a kid's movie. Right, well, I can't say fucking arsehole. What do kids say? Oh, kids say loser, right? So then you have this Marshall Teague character who's this super imposing, super impressive guy who can knock a kid out by just standing still and letting his belly do the work. And he goes, well, your sensei sounds like a loser. I just thought to myself, the way he delivered it, not even a flicker, not even a glimmer of a tongue-in-cheek. Like he wasn't even winking at the camera even for a minute. I thought, oh, that is delightful. That is delightful. I want to spoon that up and eat gobs of it. That is just, is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, just set up the IV, just mainline it right into your veins. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. And yeah, it's funny because it's him and I think Erin Gray, like you talked about, there's those moments where like she's crying and stuff like that, where it's almost like Erin Gray's like, I'm an actor. my oldest son, who's 17, just killed himself, but and I don't know what's going, how would I react if I'm a parent who's just, and again, that doesn't happen in every movie, especially every low budget movie or every PM movie, right? I mean, I think we talked about it when you were on about Riot, right? Where it's just like, Gary Daniels saves these two kids who put a pizza in the oven without taking it out of the box, and it's this huge fire. Next scene, they're just goofing around eating Chinese food, and then we never see these kids again, right? It just never happens. And so it's like when they bring in Erin Gray and she's like, she's looking at herself as this pedigreed actor, done, Buck Rogers, all that kind of stuff, that she would say, oh, I need to know what my motivation is. What is my, and it's almost like PM is like, all right, well, we got to go with it. She's got her motivation, whereas Dick Van Patten, he's like, I don't know how to act this.
Yeah. What movie am I in again? What is this?
Exactly. Right. He's just like, I don't even know what I would do as a principal if this happened. So I'm just going to be like, hey, how can I help you get over this, Ted Jim Roberts? Because you should be getting over it, right? You found your brother, right? You shouldn't be scarred for life when you find your brother hanging in the gym. No. You should be getting over it now. It's been a week. It's been a few days, right? You should. What can I do to help you?
It's classic as well. I love Van Patten in it as well because it's a classic PM thing where they go, well, who can we get? Who can we get? Well, we've got Dick Van Patten. Okay. Well, he's a renowned comedic character actor and he's been in stuff for, decades or whatever. Great. Let's put him in. It's like Mickey Rooney. I always use Mickey Rooney at the beginning of Maximum Force. I'm like, it doesn't matter why he's there. It just allows them to put Mickey Rooney on the box. Right. And Dick Van Patten, much the same. They've clearly just plunked him in a chair at a desk and gone, we're going to film all 3 or 4 of your scenes as almost like a running gag because he shows up about every 15 minutes. Like as the film is going on, it's like every 15 minutes, oh, we're back in Dick Van Patten's office again. And he's going to dispense some like kindly wisdom and be confused as to why he's even there and then leave. And I love that. It's just, it shows such economy of filmmaking where you're like, well, we've got Dick Van Patten. Great. What can he be? They go through the script. Well, there's this high school principal, or maybe there wasn't even a high school principal, and they look at the script and go, guys, the guy brother kills himself in the gymnasium. We need a principal. The only other teacher we have is Teague, and he's already a menace to society. So we need like a kindly, uncle figure. And they're like, well, Patton, he'll do that. We'll stick him in there. Great. Write 3, 4-line scenes, and that'll be like this thing throughout the movie. I love stuff like that because it allowed them to. He probably wasn't even on set a full day. You know what I mean? They probably filmed that in an afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an entirely sit down role for him if only when Erin Gray comes in to pick up Ted Jan Roberts after the suicide, he stands because he's got manners, right? When a woman walks in the room, you stand. So he stands for that. And then after the fight in the cafeteria, when he's calling in the member of the Scorpions to punish him after Ted Jan Roberts leaves, he stands at the door and essentially tells the kid, like, come on, get in here. You're bad. Those are the only 2 times he stands. The rest of the time he's sitting. It's as the guys from Comeuppance would call a sit down role. It's like Seagal, right? It's like, how much that's
I would love to see Dick Van Patten do a Seagal style martial arts role, but just while sitting and dressed as an avuncular principal.
Just sitting the whole time. But you're right. It might have been one of those things where they didn't even have these principal scenes in the movie, and they were like, "Oh, we've got Dick Van Patten for a few days. Why don't we write these pages?"
They were trying to get someone else. They were probably trying to get some other character actor, and the agent went, "We can't get him." But we had like Dick Van Patten sitting around. Mel Brooks hasn't killed Dick Van Patten for 5 minutes, so let's. Fine, we'll take him.
Right. Yeah, Troy Donahue was making a Fred Olin Ray movie on another lot, and so they couldn't get Troy Donahue. So okay, but Dick Van Patten's available. Dick Van Patten's even better than Troy Donahue. Let's get him in. This is great.
let's ride that Van Patten train all the way to the end of the line. And look, listen, no disrespect on Dick Van Patten. He's he's absolutely fantastic. He began acting as a child as well. So there is a, link. Like maybe he was particularly uncle-like or avuncular to Ted Jan Roberts and went, well, when you're acting as a child, blah, 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 blah. In fact, apparently he authored several best-selling books, including How to Get Your Child into Show Business. So maybe we're sat here going, oh, it was unintentional. Maybe it was intentional. Maybe they were like, well, we're moving into the world of having child actors. Let's call Van Patten up because he seems to be the knowledge on these parts. And he is a Mickey Rooney style figure because Rooney obviously started as a child actor as well.
Yeah. Well, and it makes total sense too why he would want to do a part like this maybe too. If they're like, hey, we're bringing on this kid, Ted Jan Roberts, we think he's going to be our, because I think this was the whole idea around the Ted Jan Roberts movies, that they were going to move into doing kids movies. But like the two that I've seen, well, three, because I've seen Hollywood Safari as well, but really just this one and Magic Kid, they don't know how to do it. They're PM and they don't know how to do it, which makes it great for us. They're fun movies. But I wonder if that makes a lot of sense, that they'd be like, okay, who can we get to help us out here? Because I can't imagine Pepin and Merhi or any of those guys, again, based on the movies that we ended up getting with them, knew anything about making kids movies. And so they were probably like, oh, and again, nobody else in this movie. So like there's, for example, there's the character Kim, who is like goes to school with them. I think she's born in 1971. So I think she's playing a 15-year-old when she's 23. I think the guy
same
Jace,
as Corey Feldman, then same
Corey
kind
Feldman.
of age. Corey Feldman's about 8 years older than Ted Jan Roberts as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other, there's the character. I can't think of the name of the character. Mike, right? Is it Mike? Is that the one that was like the one that was kind of in the group who ends up helping Ted Jan Roberts out?
Eddie.
Oh, right. Eddie was the one, right? William
James Jones. Yeah. He's the somewhat nicer one of the Scorpions, I think, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. He was on a show that was on kind of in the same block as Saved by the Bell called California Dreamin'.
Yes.
And
California Dreams.
California Dreams. That's what it was. Yeah. It was. They kind of just would be on a beach and they would play music and then get into romps or whatever that the Saved by the Bell kids would normally get into. Only this was a band. And then I read on his bio that he quit acting to become a marriage counselor. He went and got his PhD in psychology, and is now a marriage counselor. So he stopped acting altogether. But he's in this. But I think again he was born probably like late 60s, early 70s. So Ted Jan Roberts is the only real child actor that they have. But they probably had to think about certain things. Like there's certain things about having a child actor. I mean, they would use kids from time to time, but like we talk about like with Riot, it's like the kids show up for like 5 minutes and they're gone. Or like in Zero Tolerance, we got to kill the kids off, right? And so it's like,
well, what's interesting. What I kind of do like is that obviously. So here's what's interesting, and maybe I should have done a little research beforehand. But yes, the whole subject of like kid actors, right? So you've got Ted Jan Roberts. Obviously a kid actor that is being nurtured by PM. I mean, he does do other things, but he is predominantly PM Entertainment's version of like a Corey Feldman, essentially. Yeah. So he does do other stuff, but, his first film is Magic Kid 2, and then, he does a couple of episodes of TV series and stuff. But basically, most of his movies are PM films. He's obviously in the TV series, the short-lived TV series of Hollywood Safari. He does a handful of things in the mid-2000s. The most interesting of which is that he's in Milk, the Sean Penn film about Harvey Milk. He does a smattering of things in the mid-2000s. Nothing really to write home about. A movie called In the Blink of an Eye. And what's interesting is doesn't continue necessarily with the martial arts, which is sort of another curious thing because, you would assume that's where his career would have taken him. Came out of hiding in 2015 and 2017 to do a couple of short films, but that's it. So he really was PM Entertainment's, main kid actor. You then have obviously Van Patten, as we said, started off as a child actor. Corey Feldman started off as a child actor. So it's interesting that PM would kind of surround Ted Jan Roberts in this movie anyway. And I know this wasn't the first film he did with them, but surround him in this movie with former child stars, almost to help him a little bit, or I hope to help him. And then very interestingly, as we were talking about William James Jones from California Dreams, after being in a dangerous place with Corey Feldman, he also then shows up in Dream a Little Dream 2, which obviously also has Corey Feldman in it. And I wonder if Feldman didn't say like, hey, I like this kid, let's put him in Dream a Little Dream 2. You know what I mean? I'm sure Feldman and Haim had a bit of sway at that point, especially for a sequel that really only exists because they're in it. If you've seen Dream a Little Dream 1, it didn't require a sequel. So, and I like Dream a Little Dream 1, but it's hardly the thing where you're like, Oh, okay, let's have a sequel about Dream a Little Dream. But he puts him in it, or I assume he's tangentially involved with having him in it, or it's just fortuitous luck. Even so, nice to see that Corey and him may have been friends. I'm assuming. Well, yes, indeed. We have come to that time in the PM Entertainment podcast, the time that people long for, the time where I stop talking quite as much and we interview a person from the films. It's very exciting. It's one of those moments. It's really it's a cornerstone of any good podcast at this point is the celebrity interview. And here on the PM Entertainment podcast, the people we are interviewing are very much celebrities to all of us, if not to the whole world. So, obviously, I want you all to support the show. Please do rate and review us. Rate and review us. I keep saying it. I keep posting about it. I ain't seeing the reviews pour in, but I am seeing the listeners. So I know that people are listening. So please do rate and review us. The only reason I'm saying this is not for self-congratulatory reasons. I know you all love this show. It's a fantastic show. Who wouldn't love it? If you love PM Entertainment, you would love this show. Maybe not. Maybe I could tighten it up a bit and not talk as much. But, in general, I think you probably love this show. However, I'm not seeing a lot of reviews. The only reason I ask for ratings and reviewings is that the algorithm to which we are all an abundant slave at this point only shows this show to newbies who might not follow us on Facebook or Instagram, but who might listen to adjacent similar podcasts. It only shows it to them on Apple, Spotify, these other places, if we are rated and reviewed highly and repeatedly. So please do that. Takes very little time, and it does help the podcast immeasurably, as does sharing, liking, commenting, telling a friend, all those things. These are free ways to support the podcast. I obviously haven't tried to monetize this in any way yet. We're not doing merch. We're not on Patreon. We're not doing any of that. We do have to have adverts, which are coming up before and after the interview, because then that is sort of a way to pay for the show and the hosting of the show and all of that stuff without actually it making really any money for the show. But at least it covers everything just about. So we will have some adverts, but please do rate and review us. Anyway, we've got a fantastic interview coming up with none other than the fight choreographer himself, the masterful, the amazing, the high-kicking legend that is Art Camacho, who did some incredible fight choreography for PM throughout the decade and a bit that they were around. And we talk about some of that. We talk about his work with PM, what he thinks about PM. We talk to Art Camacho, and he is a phenomenal dude. What a beautiful, beautiful, lovely man Art Camacho is. And we had a great chat, so here it is. Enjoy. Thank you so much. Rate and review the show. Don't forget adverts, then interview, then back to the show. Thank you.
Yeah, they're very blessed. I've been at this since 1990, believe it or not. And man, oh man, like everything else, there's lulls in there, but right now it's just, very blessed that it's just picked up in amazing ways, in the 90s. That was, I consider those the golden years for me. Personally, for me, it was like the best era,
Yeah. And you started with PM, from what I can figure out, you started with PM as an actor initially on Ring of Fire. And was that something where, you were just auditioning around at the time trying to get into movies, or was that because you knew Don, or how did that come about, that first role? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, you know what? It was my Sifu, Eric Lee, Kung Fu Master Eric Lee, who basically brought me to PM because I had been, I had a couple of starring roles, forgettable movies, but, I've been kind of bouncing around, and Eric Lee called out of the blue and says, "Hey, Art, they need some people here for a film. Want to get your butt kicked for $50?" I said, "I'm your guy," and that was it. So these action kind of roles, and I was actually pretty good at it, and that's how it started. I mean, PM was one of the very first. I think I'd done like maybe 3 or 4 films prior to, but PM really just, I'm telling you, without PM, there is no Art Camacho. And I tell Joseph every time I see him, I thank him for the opportunity, everything. I mean, believe it or not, PM gave me some of my first action roles. Then they gave me my first choreography gig. They gave me my SAG card. And then Joseph gave me my directing opportunity. It was amazing.
Yeah, no, they were a great. We've been talking a little bit about them, like that Roger Corman school, and bringing on yourself and giving you just all these great opportunities. You were an actor, fight choreographer, stunt guy, writer, producer, second unit director, and director. And it's wonderful that sort of PM had this very open idea of, well, if someone has a good idea, they can write a script. If someone has proved themselves, in the trenches with the stunt guys, they can start doing, choreography or coordinating or the second unit directing. They really had this great kind of school there. So talk a little bit about sort of being in the mix there, what it was like working with those guys, both as directors and Rick as a cinematographer, and some of the martial artists you got to work with and choreograph.
Yeah, well, you hit it on the nail that that my relationship obviously was primarily with Rick and Joseph more than Rick. And I tell you, it was a kind of thing where you go in there and you have to prove yourself. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that I really respect about them is that you have to prove yourself, not just because you go in there and they're giving opportunities. I mean, I busted my butt, doing, the choreography and helping and training and everything else. And Joseph saw that. And as a matter of fact, to give you an idea, when he gave me first offered me to direct a film, I was choreographing one of his films. I think it was Magic Kid.
Yeah.
He wanted to do a big kind of karate sequence, like Karate Kid kind of thing. And we went on what they call a tech scout. A tech scout is where you go and you scout locations to see how you're going to shoot it, where you're going to put your equipment, that kind of stuff. And that morning, I remember Joseph asked me, he says, "Hey, Art, I'm going to do a kind of a tournament sequence. Do you think you can get me some of your friends to come up and show up in their gis and stuff like that?" And I said, "Great, yeah, absolutely." Maybe 30, 40 guys. So that starts like at 7, 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
By noon, he came back to me, he says, "Hey, Art, can you think we can get maybe 100 people?" I said, "Well, okay." I'm not that popular, but I'll do it.
Sure, you start ringing around dojos and stuff and seeing who's available, right?
Come here, little kid. You want to be in the movie?
Yeah, right. As long as you're not driving around West Hollywood in a panel, man, you're fine.
And the funny thing was that by the end of the day, that number, his vision ballooned to like 500-600 people, and then I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then he says, "Art, you give me these people, I'll give you a bonus." I said, "No, Joseph, you asked me as a favor. I'm going to find a way." And long story short is I was really hustling friends of friends, went to Atomics, who provides a lot of the sports equipment. And I said, "Hey, can you give me some stuff? I'll raffle off things." And I did a whole marketing campaign. and the assistant director, Jerry Jacobs, he told me, he says, "Art, Joseph hasn't shot a tournament, and it's very elaborate. So if I was you, since they're your friends and they're going to be there for free or for peanuts, you should have a plan. You should definitely have a plan." And so I came back to my house, and I'm telling you, brother, I came out with a schematic. I was drawing X's, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'll tell you that right now. But I thought, oh my God,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? So I'm writing X's and O's and camera A, camera B, and just, just craziness.
Right, making it up, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a 4-page schematic, and I brought it to Joe the next day. And I said, "Joseph, I don't know if you have your plan for your tournament, but this was just some ideas." And he looked at it, and he kind of just smiled and didn't say anything. And I was like, I felt kind of stupid. It's like, he's the director. Why am I telling the director how to direct this film? I walked out of the room, and then Joseph asked me, literally right on the set where we're shooting the Magic Kid, he says, "Hey, Art, you want to direct movies?" And then I thought, this guy's making fun of me now. Now he's putting, salt on an open wound. So I said, "Yeah, sure.
Right.
Of course, I want to direct films." End of story. A few days later, I get a call from the secretary that set up the meeting. She goes, "Mr. Camacho, we want to know if you're available." I think it was like on a Wednesday. And I said, well, yeah, for what? She goes, yeah, Joseph wants to meet with you to discuss the film you're going to direct for us. And that's how I found out that I was actually going to be a director,
Oh,
just,
that's fantastic.
and it's just such a wonderful human being. And like I told you before, this is no exaggeration or just blowing smoke up anybody's ass. I would not be here sitting right now if it wasn't for Joseph Murray, in all honesty.
Yeah.
He's just,
Yeah, he really he gave so many people some great opportunities. And you worked with some of the great stunt teams of all time. Spiro, Rosados, Cole SBK, Red Horton, Michael Sana. Like you worked with all these guys and they all had their own crews and they all worked with each other's crews. How did some of their approaches differ when it came to kind of setting up stunts? And how does the fight choreographer work kind of within a stunt team like that?
it was very interesting because in the beginning, it was very adversarial. I mean, when I came onto the scene with PM, they had already been working with Cole McKay and some of these other stunt coordinators. But then PM started giving me all their fight stuff. So
Right.
whenever there was a fight, they'd call me up or, to coordinate the fight. And there was a little bit of friction with their established stunt people. It got to a point where they called me out. They called me out. They go, "Hey, you know what? You're infringing on our turf." And
Oh,
me,
wow.
I was a hot-headed Mexican then. I'm more mellow now. But anybody, I said, "Well, bring it, bring it. You want you one-on-one or bring your stunt guys. I'll bring my homeboys from the barrio, whatever you want." I was really pissed off, to be honest with you, because I said,
Okay.
I'm not a stunt coordinator. I'm not a car specialist. All I do is fights. That's all I give a
Right.
shit about right now, in terms of the
Right.
stunts. And so the fact that I didn't back down, we eventually became best of friends with all these stunt
Right.
coordinators, and they respected my turf, I respected their turf, but it was really weird in the beginning. But to be honest with you, I really have so much love and admiration for them, and I learned so much from Cole McKay, from Spiro. I mean, my God, when we did Recoil, my first time working with Spiro, that guy was a genius, an artist, a really strong artist, and he knew his stuff. Obviously, look at him now; he's one of the bigger guys in Hollywood. But yeah,
Yeah.
for me, I feel it was always a learning opportunity. I'd see what they were doing, seeing where they're placing their cameras, because I have no real formal education. I mean, I dropped out of school about 16, 17, and I
Yeah.
just go by gut. Everything I do is my gut. I've directed and written up, but I taught myself how to write scripts. I taught myself how to direct, how to produce. But to work with some of these great people that Joseph, surrounded me with was an immense learning opportunity. And
Yeah.
I still, when I work on my films, even though I have stunt coordinators, fight coordinators, 90% of the fights you see in any film I direct, it's me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
That seems to be your specialty, which is fantastic. And you can always tell your flourishes and the way you work with both actors and martial artists to kind of get the best from them. Because of course there's, in the sort of world of PM, you've got you've got the movies that you'll have a lead actor in, and most of the stunts are, car wrecks or high falls or something that a stunt team is doing. Then of course you've got like the Gary Daniels type movies, which will have a lot of that. They'll have a lot of driving around and fighting and Don the Dragon Wilson movies as well. But obviously because they're martial artists, there will be scenes in which they're fighting with the bad guy or whoever. And then obviously there are the tournament movies, which are obviously a lot more fight heavy and less
Right.
stunt heavy. So I suppose your strengths and you became sort of working with those last two types. You were doing the fight choreography for movies where you had like a martial artist or something in the lead who could do the moves and things, and then obviously on the tournament movies,
Mhm. Yeah.
where they were doing more like build up, fight after fight after fight till he meets the big bad in the ring kind of thing.
Absolutely. And you know what? What I try to do every time, then and now, even now, I did a film recently that got released on Hulu. Actually, it went to number one, which is good, called Ruthless, with
Nice. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
with Dermot Mulroney. And Dermot, number
Yeah.
one, we became really good friends. He's a sweet guy, apart from being a brilliant actor. But what I wanted to do in that one, and I picked that up from PM, I trained him. I worked with him so that he did, if you see the film, like 90 5% of everything you see, it's him. I wanted to make sure
Oh,
that,
nice. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
so I was teaching him how to block, how to take hits, and it was fun, man. And to him, he had a blast because he's known for rom-coms, up to that point.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah,
here he
he's
is a
known for like
badass.
dramas and rom-coms and things.
Well, what I do is play the devil's advocate. I needle them. I say, well, Keanu Reeves would do his own fights. I don't know about you, but I mean, I can get you a stunt double, but look at Keanu, look
Right.
at Tom Cruise. I
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. And
because
you
I
said before, actually, in interviews that your martial arts discipline is very eclectic, and you've worked with a very eclectic and diverse range of actors and martial artists.
yes,
Talk a little bit about like how much do you impose your style on them or what you want from them, and how much do you adapt your ideas to fit them? So if you're working with like a Gary Daniels and a Don Wilson, obviously they have a background, so they want to bring some of their signature moves, but you might have some stuff that you're like, yeah, but we could judge it up like this, right? So how does that back and forth work versus taking an actor who, I don't know, maybe does jujitsu in his spare time, but is not, a martial artist per se.
well, you know what? When it comes to let's take Gary Daniels for instance. I mean, the guy knows what he wants, and obviously he can do almost anything. He's a phenomenal martial artist. So I'm more of a traffic cop. I'm more of a, I'll capture the moments. I'm more of a director as opposed to choreographer with Gary Daniels. With Don Wilson, it's very very unique because him and I, gosh, I mean, we spent got 30 years as friends, and I did 25 of his movies, directed him in
Yeah,
four.
you've done tons of those films together. Yeah.
Yeah, and so with him, it was more I would put the moves together, and then he would kind of add his own flair to it. And let's say
Right.
since Rock again, I put kind of a skeleton together, and then let her kind of do her thing. Steven Seagal, with him again, he's an Aikido master, so I would just tell him, hey, can you send that body that way? Again,
Right.
more of a traffic cop. And with actors who, like you said, actors who have some training, like let's say like a Dermot, and people who really are passionate about wanting to do this stuff, that's when I fully choreograph. I take into consideration their strengths, their weaknesses, and I work it into the fight scene. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, what I do is, to me, fights are still dances. Dances with kicks and
Yeah.
punches, you know. And but yeah, each situation is very very unique.
Did you ever, when you were training or preparing for a film or whatever, did you ever do kind of previs with a camcorder, like filming your guys in the gym or whatever, just so that you could kind of reference something on set, or did you always just write stuff down? How are you kind of preparing
Believe it
those
or not,
fights?
I would never. I only previous maybe I've choreographed close to 1,000 fights throughout my,
Oh, at least I would imagine. Yeah.
and out of that, I've only shot and previous maybe 10 fights.
Okay.
And then even at that, what I do is where I have my assistants write them down, or I already know the fights in my head, and so I just boom, I just get people to do it, perform it.
Yeah.
I previous is a great tool, but I've been in situations where it works out wonderful, but when you're on the set on the day of, everything goes out the door.
Right.
You
Okay.
just got to go by the seat of your pants and know, and your instinct. As long as I know camera, as long as I know character, boom. That's
Yeah.
my your thing because I'm literally so focused on what I'm doing at that point in time.
And that's an interesting thing as well. How much do you, when you're choreographing a fight, if you have this, if you even have this luxury, but how much do you consider the character and the story and the kind of creative film elements versus the I just want to make this fight look badass and cool? Like how much, I guess, how much do you consider sort of the how the fight sits in the movie as a whole, or was that never even a consideration because it's just movies and it's fights and it's good?
In the beginning, it was just the choreography. And in the first few years, it was just that. It was just let's make a kick-ass fight. Then,
Yeah.
as I started to mature as a filmmaker, as a choreographer, then it was all about story
Yeah.
and character. Because I would always literally, I'd ask myself, okay, what is my character's skill sets, and what is the story we're telling, and how does this fight fit in the context of the movie? And so all those things go into my head when I'd be choreographing it. And then, of course, how much time do I have to shoot it? So then I would, again, in my head, I'd make up, okay, I have this shot here, I have that shot there. We have an hour, literally all that's going through the whole process. And but
Yeah.
in the beginning, it was just, okay, let's make kick-ass fights. And then it was all story, 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 character, 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 and time, because you never have enough time. You never have enough time to shoot these things the way you want to, of course.
Yeah.
And going back to this thing with Joseph, and I tell you, I was working so much at that for like 3 years. I was doing like 10, 12 films a year. It was just
Yeah.
back to back. And it was such an amazing, amazing opportunity because, like I told you, it was a great school. It was a school to me.
Yes.
I
Yes.
carry with me not only the memory and then the appreciation of Joseph, but I carry with me all those lessons I learned. That's what made me
Yes.
very efficient and kept me still relevant right now, today, 30 years later, because of that schooling that I had, and that opportunity.
Yeah.
And
Art, from my side as a fan and as someone who is obviously dedicating a lot of time to get the PM movies back out there and getting seen hopefully by audiences and people talking about them again. We know the work that goes into this. We appreciate the work that goes into this. We appreciate the passion and the style and the craft and all your work and all your hard work. We appreciate what went into it, and we look at it that way. We see you as an artist. That's how we value these movies, because what we lack now is this entertainment and this fun and this just skill, and seeing it on screen, again, either in Blu-ray, VHS, DVD, doesn't matter. It means a lot to us. We love the movies. We love you guys, and I just want to give the respect back, man.
John, thank you so much. It means so much to me, and I see that in you. I see a passion. I see you're very genuine, and I tell you, I thinking of those films, there was so much love and so much passion. It wasn't a paycheck in the beginning. Of course, it's always a paycheck, but it was
Right.
like passion. It was a passion, and I can't tell you enough the lifelong friendship I've had with Joseph has just meant the world to me. And I tell every time I speak to anybody in paper and print and podcast, I always say the same thing. Without Joseph, without PM Entertainment, there's no Art Camacho. I swear to you. It's just, I mean, it's such a blessing to be part of that era of films,
So back to the movie then. We have it's sort of bookended by what I would call more traditional PM Entertainment action sequences. So which is a little unfair on it, because when it starts off and you've got dirt bikes driving through glass windows and being chased by the cops, and they use actually a shot from Intent to Kill, which was, as people are listening to this episode, was last week's episode, the Intent to Kill with Corey Danner we had on as a guest, who is a fantastic author and other stuff. We get into it. But the director of this movie, Jerry P. Jacobs, was either an assistant director or a second unit director on Intent to Kill, and Ken Blakey was the cinematographer. So at the beginning of this, to sort of extend the car chase and give it a little bit of bang for your buck, you have the same shot from Intent to Kill where a police car goes through a flatbed truck that is carrying barrels of water. Why? I don't know. And as the police car hits it, the water goes in like slow motion and like sprays out across the street. It's incredible. And then the car flips over, and this one does explode, but there's no indication that anyone is harmed in the process of it exploding, which is interesting because that is from the final action sequence in Intent to Kill. So I know PM reused footage in their TV series, and I also know that PM then bought footage from other movies to implement into their action sequences later on. As you're getting to like 98, 99, 2000, you start to see clips from other movies that they've bought so that they don't have to film entire action sequences themselves. So it's interesting to see, especially as Intent to Kill was the very last PM I watched before this one, exactly the same action sequence. But it starts with a very traditional PM, Call S. McKay action sequence. And it does lull you into a full sense of security that maybe you're going to see a lot of these kind of action sequences. Instead, the action you get for the vast majority of kind of the middle section of the movie are mostly martial arts, fisticuffs, beach fights, dojo beatings, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Is that earlier on in PM's, I think it's really before they get Don the Dragon Wilson. I think when they get him, it's like, okay, now we're going to start doing more martial arts. And that's when, Art Camacho comes in and he is kind of their principal fight choreographer, though like, I think, Ted Jan Roberts is fight choreographer for one of the films that he does. But yeah, Art Camacho and that's where his stuff is so great. And then I think the other thing that Art Camacho, so this movie, of course, isn't directed by him, but there, like, for example, something like Recoil, one area where Camacho was great was that he would say, okay, I'm directing the movie. I'll do the dramatic scenes, but here, Spiro Rosados, you're going to do whatever you want for and I think, he works well too with someone like a Cole S. McKay in this film, where it's like, he's doing the fight choreography. Cole S. McKay's doing the chases and the explosions and all of that kind of stuff. And, and again, it's like another level of quality. Like you said, talking about like Karate Kid, where you've got a lot of actors who don't know martial arts. Nobody really knows. I guess Martin Kove may have known martial arts, but really nobody else knows them. Whereas in this film, yes, they're doing a lot of doubling for Feldog, but Ted Jan Roberts was a legitimate martial artist. Marshall Teague also was a martial art, and some of the kids I think might have had some experience as well. And Art Camacho choreographs it well, and Blakey, of course, is great as the cinematographer and shooting that stuff. And so it's one of those things where, like, I don't know, you'd say this is a better movie than Karate Kid, but I think for what we look for in a movie, it has more of that than Karate Kid does.
Yeah, and look, I saw Karate Kid as we all did, growing up, and I've watched the sequels, and I haven't seen any of the reboots with Smith and Jackie Chan, although I wouldn't mind, because they're about to make one that crosses over the reboots and the original franchise. They're about to make one, or they already have made one, that has Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio in it, which I'm fascinated by. Like, I'm very intrigued how they've tried to. But look at Cobra Kai, the way Cobra Kai is weaved in almost every single plot point from all of the sequels. Yeah. Even the one where they go to Japan and everything. They've like weaved it all into this new series, a new franchise, in a way that you couldn't have imagined really 20 years ago. So, I'm not going to say I'm not a fan of the Karate Kid franchise, but I was never like, Karate Kid's my thing. Like, it was never, my franchise or my thing. I would occasionally watch it if it was on TV or cable or something, but and I own them now, and it's part of my collection, but it's not one that I often, go back to and put in, if I'm perfectly honest. And whereas something like this, because it's a PM film, because it combines just so many different styles and vibes. I mean, I mentioned it in the rundown, but that cafeteria food fight, it's a food fight that, in the way the camera pans across it, it's staged like one of those war scenes where people are like throwing grenades and stuff over, the trenches with like dust and smoke and stuff in the air. Whereas in this case, it's like egg salad and bread and whatever they're flinging at each other. But they're flinging so much of it. It's not even like Animal House, where they're like grabbing realistic gobs of food or whatever. It's like they've given all these kids just a massive amount of crumbs, and they're just throwing them through the air, which sort of creates this incredible kind of I mean, cleaning up after that must have been an absolute nightmare, because it's a confetti of food. It's a confetti of food, and it goes on for a long time. But the camera pans across it, all from one side. It all films it almost like a TV show, all from one side. It pans across the no man's land of the cafeteria while they're throwing food grenades at each other. But all the while, Jim Halfpenny, whether intentionally or whether he just produced a bunch of music and Jerry P. Jacobs just decided where to put it, but it scored like an incredibly menacing, dark slasher film. I mean, his soundtrack in this is so close to being a Carpenter ripoff or nod to a Carpenter or a nod to like a Manfredini maybe from Friday the 13th. It's so doom laden and so dark. And look, the food fight starts with him being forced by the Scorpions to go over and humiliate one of his dear friends from his dojo and he decides to pour food on his head. And he says, I'm really sorry I have to do this, and he like flips food on his head. And then the entire cafeteria gets up and just starts throwing food around. And obviously that's a sad moment. You want to underscore that moment. You want to kind of, bring the weight down of everything Ted Jan Roberts had to, all that high school goodwill that he has from the girl. Is it Kim? The
Kim,
girl?
yeah.
Trisha Vesey, the girl Kim, and his friend, who he, you want to feel the weight of it. But then the fact that when this sort of joyous cafeteria food fight breaks out, you've still got this like doom laden. I can't explain it. I might even play a clip on the show because you just watch it and you go, it's like Jerry P. Jacobs and Ken Blakey went, let's shoot this like a World War I, battlefield. It's oh man, it's sort of surreal genius. I mean, I may be looking too deep into it, and it may just be a confluence of confusing events, but man, I love it. And it typifies the balance that they're doing between these vibes that are running throughout the movie. Is it a doom-laden teen drama full of suicide and angst and pain and anguish, or is it just a fun karate romp in which they, ride around on dirt bikes and beat people up on the beach? What is it? We don't know. We don't care. It's wonderful and beautiful is what it is.
Well, to that point, right, when we get the end scene, right, where things are supposed to be tense and we're building up to this big denouement, the music they're playing there is like in a Scooby-Doo episode when they're like running around and the baddies chasing them, and it's like, what is this that's going on? It's like, am I in a Hanna-Barbera cartoon? It's like, or am I in, and it's like this kind of like this romp, kind of like do, like almost like a violin playing or whatever. And as like, Feldman is scooting around on a dirt bike and all that stuff. And it's like, or like, we were talking about earlier, like with the car flipping over, and it's like this tense violin of like, like it's going, it's like, I mean, the music is so all over the place. It just adds to the surreal quality of it.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I became obsessed with the score. The score was absolutely fantastic. And yes, there is one way in which this film saddened me, and this is what. At the very end of the, you have this tournament, and there's no explanation of the tournament. It immediately goes from green belt to black belt. They're like, well, we're not going to have them all fight. We'll just have, the kid earlier, his friend who we had to pour food on, who was in the dojo with Mako. He was the one who was trying all of his moves all at once and failing. And Mako went, hold back, slow down, be more intentional, be more focused, right? He had that moment in the dojo towards the beginning. And I don't know his name. Do we know his name?
No, because the character's name was Jason, right? Jason Robago, I think. But
so
I don't...
Derek Basco then.
Derek,
is the actor's name. And he's great in it. Fantastic. And another great actor who is still working today. He's in The Mayor of Kingstown, so he's worked solidly since. Which congrats to him, because he is fantastic. But he did, he fights one of the Scorpions, swaps belts, right? A black belt Scorpion puts on a green belt, as if everyone sees him do it. Like anyone would just now you can't do that, mate. Sorry.
He's handing it out, and Ted Van Roberts is like, I'm calling it out. Like he's cheating. He's and Mako's like, that's okay. What does the belt matter? You just go in and focus and do you do your thing. But it is kind of funny how like in the middle of this like it does kind of seem like one of the things that does kind of seem like the case is that nobody's really paying attention, right? Like it seems like there's all kinds of stuff.
And also, what is this tournament for?
Right, exactly, right. It's like, because it's the idea that
Teague says you need to set up we need to settle this once and for all. Who's better, the Scorpions or the Lions, right?
The Lions, yeah.
And he's like, so you've got to get Mako to set up a tournament, right? Yeah. I know his name's not Mako. What was his?
No, I can't really. Sensei. I think he was just called Sensei, to be honest.
He's just Sensei. Yeah, he's just Sensei. Okay, you've got to get Sensei to set up this tournament, and you go, okay. So there's this big tournament, and it's all set up, and it looks like the end of Karate Kid or whatever. Right. And you're like, all right, it's a tournament, but who's like normally tournaments are run by like leagues where there are multiple towns and different schools and whatever, and everyone has to like battle it out through this thing, and there's an association that monitor it, and there's rules and you know what I mean? Like tournaments are big deals, they're big things. You know, there's sponsors and there's probably a board or whatever. No. This is just, we've taken up for a local gymnasium, and two local dojos are just going to beat 7 shades of shit out of each other. We've got one guy in a referee uniform. We don't know where he's from or what his bias is.
Right. Well, and we do get the Automix, the ubiquitous, or the prerequisite Automix sponsor, right? So we've got when Ted J. Roberts shows up, the booth where he's supposed to register that he's part, you know, it's sponsored by Automix. So you got to have the Automix. But other than that, you're right.
Other than that, there's nothing else. And what's funny, register for what? Like it's two local dojos. But again, we see the green belt challenge, and then it just immediately jumps to black belt. So Ted Jan Roberts has to face off against Corey Feldman. Again, in a regular tournament, because of the weight difference, I don't care if they're both black belts, that would never happen. But fine, whatever, we'll accept it. Same with Karate Kid, though. There's no way a featherweight or whatever, and I don't know whether they use the same terminology in martial arts that they use in boxing, but, you know, Macho is like a featherweight compared to, you know, Zabka's probably, I don't know, middleweight or whatever he is. But he's certainly bigger, tall. I mean, Zabka is like 6 foot and Macho is like 5'2". In my head. Probably not really. And the same. I mean, look, Feldog's short as well. Like when you see him walking around with his gang early on, he's like the shortest of the 5 kids. Right. But you know, certainly bigger than Ted Robertson, 8 years older than him. You know. So Ted Jan Roberts might be still going through puberty. Corey Feldman's puberty is well and truly done, cooked, baked into his Elvis sideburns at this point. They fight, and as they finish their fight, and it's clear that Ted Jan Roberts is going to win. In fact, he could have kicked all his teeth out, but he stops short of half an inch from Feldog's face, and everyone declares him the winner. It then all breaks into a big fight, and everyone runs out of the gymnasium, and you know he follows Corey Feldman and blah 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 blah. Here's my problem: is we see Mako lamp Teague, right? So Mako Sensei goes up to Gavin. I love that.
Gavin is his name.
I love that Marshall Teague's name is Gavin.
We don't know if it's Gavin as in like his first name's Gavin or his last name's Gavin, right?
I don't matter. Just Gavin.
No, he's just
Hello,
Gavin.
I'm Gavin. It's such not a name. Like his name should his name should be something like Dalton or something, you know, like from Roadhouse, but it should be something like something with some heft to it, some weight, not Gavin. Hello, I'm Gavin.
Anyway, Gavin what? No, just Gavin.
No, just Gavin. It's like Madonna.
Exactly.
It's like Cher. You're like, you're not selling it to me, dude. But no, I mean, the whole rundown. I mean, the characters' names are Ethan, Taylor, Sensei, Audrey, Gavin, Greg, Kim, Eddie. I mean, it's like they just played Mad Libs with the most common names of 1994.
Right, exactly. Because before the internet, otherwise it was the internet, right? You could just be like every 5th name when you look at those baby name lists. That's what I use a lot of times when I need names, is baby name lists. But
what they should have done is they should have gone through all of Wings Hauser's characters from all of his movies and called him one of those names, because Wings Hauser's characters always have like fantastic names. I mean, look at some of these names. Some of these names that he got to play in CSI, just a regular episode of CSI. He's Tony Lash. Tony Lash. Wings Hauser is Tony Lash. He plays AP Cade in The Mentalist. Doesn't even have a first name. It's AP Cade. In some of his earlier movies, let's go back to some of his earlier movies. Even in Mind, Body, and Soul, not a great Wings Hauser movie, but fine. John Stockton. It's just got a. You know what I mean? It's not like Gavin. Yeah. You know what I mean? Gavin.
No, Stockton. Just Stockton would have been good.
Just Stockton. That would have been a great name. Yeah. In between, he plays a character called Jack Maxwell. Maxwell would have been a great name. Beastmaster 2, he plays Arklon. I mean, he could have been Gavin Arklon is at least better than just Gavin. Van Vandermeer in Pale Blood is one of my favorites because you're writing that down. You're like, Van's a good, strong name. But then Van Vandermeer, just great. Alice Ryder in Street Asylum. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they should have Kavanaugh in LA Bounty. Kavanaugh would have been a great name for Teague instead of Gavin. I don't know where Gavin came from. But anyway, so Sensei lamps Gavin, and you're like, we're going to get a Teague Mako fight. And we don't. That's it. We get one hit, and that's it. Yeah. Then they all the other fighters are like scattering and beginning to fight amongst themselves as well. And obviously, we follow Ted Jan Roberts and Corey Feldman because they're like, well, it's a PM film, so we have to have like more car chases and bike chases and everything, and end it with a chase, and then we'll end it with a fist fight, a martial arts fight. After Corey Feldman says the best line ever, where he goes, "There are no rules out here." There were no rules during the tournament. One of your dudes put on a black belt when put on a green belt when he's a black belt. There was people like you were about to tear someone's throat out, and everyone was just going to let you do it. Like what? There are rules out here as well. There are police. There are like societal rules. There are ordinances. Like there are a lot of rules in life. He's like, there are no rules out here. No, there were no rules in the gymnasium where you were having this phony baloney trumped up tournament that didn't exist with anyone. That's where there were no rules, mate. Out here there were rules. So my only sad thing is I would have loved. You could have still had the car chase, the bike chase, and the fight between Corey and Ted Jan to end it. But I would have loved a Blazing Saddles ending where they all ran out of the gymnasium and all just started fighting in the street. You know what I mean? And I would have like an anchor man. You know what I mean? Like I would have loved just they all run out into the street. Mako's fucking laying out Teague. Teague's trying desperately to fight him back with his stomach, but it isn't working. All the kids are fighting amongst themselves. You know what I mean? Like even Trisha Vesey starts pulling hair and just smacking mothers around. Like it should have to really end it with a joyous cacophony of madness. They should have all spilled out into the street and fought. And that's the only trick I think that PM missed here. And I'm not one to lamp a lot of criticism their way, but I'll give them that for this.
Exactly. I wonder because all those kids were the ones that were just the extras doing the food fight stuff. They were high school kids. They all got thank you credits and just by their first names as well. Even they didn't get their full names; they just got their first name. Right. And I wonder if there was a talk about maybe having them fight and realizing like, oh, we can't do that with them because we can't have them actually fight.
Dude, even if they went outside and an epic food fight broke out again, and in the middle of the food fight, Teague and Mako were like martial arts in it, but then there was this massive food fight, and it was filmed, like the opening to Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
What if they all down to the beach again? Yes. And they had like the beach scene, and there was just a huge food fight on the beach. Come on, they missed a trick there.
And what you have to have, right, is Erin Gray gets a ride there from that police detective who's like,
we haven't talked about them yet. We're going to get to them.
I mean, that police detective. So she gets a ride there, and then the food fight breaks out, and she's like, you know what, detective? And he's like, I don't know what. And she pies him in the face. Like,
yes. That's what I'm saying. We needed a Blazing Saddles ending. Right. Yes. Look, and then you can have... Then it just cuts back to Feldman and he's on the bike riding around and whatever. Like at that point, we've seen them square off so many times that or at least we know the square off's happening, that there's not necessarily that much emotional weight to them squaring off at the end of the movie. Yeah. The fun would have been to have had one last full blown kids involved romp. Right. But yes, as you brought it up, let us talk about that detective because I don't know whether they blew the entire budget on Van Patten, Corey Feldman, Erin Gray, Mako, Teague, and Roberts. But who was this guy? Yeah. Eddie Wild. He has this great name, Eddie Wild. Fucking Teague should have been called. Do you know what? Teague should have just been called Teague. Right. Fuck any other name. Teague is a good enough name. You know what I mean?
What's the thing? Marshall. His real name, Marshall Teague, is better than Gavin. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
But so this guy, Eddie Wild, oh my goodness. He's in a movie called Art Deco Detective, which I don't know whether they looked up what directed by Philippe Mora as well. Wow. Okay. Who
just sounds beautiful.
Yeah. Well, Philippe Mora was an exploitation director. He made Mad Dog Morgan in the Outback with Dennis Hopper. Philip Mora made he made A Breed Apart with Rutger Hauer and Donald Pleasance. I think right?
Yeah.
Is that a Philip Mora movie?
I mean, the thing you also kind of forgot to mention about Eddie Wilde is that his name Eddie is spelled Eddi.
Yes.
That's it. There's no E after the I.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he is he's been in some things, has Eddie Wilde. Not a lot. I mean, he stops acting in 2001 by the looks of it. Now, this is interesting. So he did do stunts for a movie called Killing for Love and a movie called Camille.
Yeah.
He does a motorbike stunt. So I don't know, maybe he was part of the stunt team and they were just like, Eddie, do you want to be a detective in this or something? I have no idea. Before this, he was in Direct Hit and Ice for PM Entertainment.
Right.
After this, they don't use him again. But yeah, I don't know what he was all about or what his deal was, but he played the whole thing like he had a serious brain injury a week ago and was still recovering and was on heavy drugs. Played the whole thing like he was sedated.
Well, it was like I was saying when we were messaging back and forth that it's like they wanted either Joey Travolta or Frank Pesci in this role or somebody like that, Al Sapienza, somebody along those lines. And they were all busy. So it's like, all right, Eddie, here's your big shot, and
right. But I feel like even if they'd had Cole S. McKay as the detective, it would have been more entertaining because Cole S. McKay is at least has energy and is upbeat and engaging in that way. This detective, the only thing you can say really about him or the part that he plays in the film is that he at least, unlike any other detective in any other movie like this, and this is again where sort of PM, in order for them to get the end result they want, because we know for a fact that you can't claim, well, a ghost told me that it was mace to the face, right? You've got to have at some point a detective say, I believe this is to the case and I'm going to make this case and I'm going to figure it out, because you can't just say, well, my ghost brother told me as a defense, apparently. You need that character to believe Ted Jan Roberts and kind of go on his own case. So the fact that he does that is like a nice scripting point, because it's not something that you would see in another movie. I just don't know why they hired this guy, because they might have gone, look, the detective is not that big a role, but I mean, I don't know. It's throughout the whole movie. It's a pivotal plot point. Like, they might have just found it funny. I don't know. Or maybe he was a friend with Jerry P. Jacobs. Who knows?
Right, exactly. No, I agree completely. Yeah, it's a fascinating piece of this. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only other thing that I had on this movie is, you were talking about on my podcast about the In Defense of podcast where they would talk about how PM understands the concept of movies, and they understand like pieces, but they don't understand like the whole putting it together. And you see that really clearly here with the whole Chekhov's gun thing, where so Ted Jan Roberts, when he's trying to get in with the Scorpions, they're robbing the Van Nuys swap meet, right? They're robbing a
because apparently Teague needs a shit ton of TVs and DVD players to do what with? To sell for what? Or just to fill up his mansion with it? I have no idea.
Right.
Like, there's no indication, because he says, well, that's not a lot of stuff, as if he has gangs of other dojos collecting more stuff. Does he? For what purpose? Where and when? Anyway, sorry.
Right, exactly. No, we don't know. Right. So it just happens that there's a guy who's like a guard who's like new to, and he's walking around shooting at them because he finds out they're there. Ted Jan Roberts does the whole Mannix routine where he's like up on top of a ledge and jumps down and knocks him down, and they disarm him, and the gun's on the ground, and Feldman picks it up. Well, okay. So the gun's there. So now we know the gun needs to be used later. So the screenwriter for this film, the filmmakers, they understand the whole Chekhov's gun thing. If you show the gun here, you've got to use it later. Well, the using it later was just when the whole ballroom blitz thing starts to break out. Feldman grabs the gun, and then like the cops disarm him, and then he attacks the cops and goes and runs. That's it for the gun. The gun shows up. I guess it's enough to clear the gymnasium, but actually everybody runs away. I don't like. They're kind of all running. It like the gun didn't seem to play any part, but it was almost like this thing of like, well, we got to bring the gun back somehow. How do we do that?
Right.
The rules say we need to bring it back, though. We gotta
maybe
do something
they
with
brought it back so that they could at least, like, when he gets arrested at the end of the movie, he can't be arrested for murder because they say they washed the mace off. So even if he was like, but my dead brother's ghost said they maced him in the face, they'd be like, well, there's no evidence of mace. So,
right.
Although also, can you imagine the scene we don't get in this movie is of the Scorpion gang, the 4 of them or whatever, carrying this dead body around and like washing its face down or whatever.
like yelling at each other while one's got a rag or something.
Grab the leg. No. Yeah. You can't do that. It's slipping, whatever.
Right, exactly.
There's a whole Weekend at Bernie's sequence in this movie that's like cut out where they wash off all the faces, all the mace off the face. They wipe down all the thing. They obviously remove any footprints or fingerprints or anything, apparently, that would tie them to it. So I suppose, does he get arrested at the end of the movie just for, he's being chased by the police on the dirt bike. He fires the gun in the gymnasium. Like, there's certain little things they might be able to get him on that maybe that's going to be enough to put him away long enough for the family to feel safe and better. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I thought the friend Eddie confessed too, because he calls.
The friend says yes, it happened. Aside. It happened, but
yeah, I
mean, any lawyer would just be like, okay, prove it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, who's Eddie?
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's a good. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, that's another piece. I guess the gun, right? He had a firearm in a situation like that.
Yeah. Well, because Eddie also, when the brother is killed, Eddie shows up once the brother is already at the bottom of the stairs. Yeah. So he can say, yes, someone pushed him down the stairs. He can't say who pushed him down the stairs or how it happened. Unless, he can say that the gang has all been talking about how he was pushed down the stairs, but he can't personally say that he witnessed it. I mean, not that, I don't know why we're going so deep into like, listen, the detective walks Corey Feldman away in handcuffs and then the family lives happily ever after. That's all we need to know. But, I don't know why we're going so hard into that. Wow, there's no evidence. And if this court case was on SVU or Law and Order or something, they made out of it.
You're making a great point that was how they used Chekhov. Actually, I probably should have given them more credit for Chekhov's gun, that they used it as a means to get Feldman arrested. So in that sense, it actually did play more of a part than, I guess I think of the traditional Chekhov's gun where it's like pointed at somebody and, they might get shot or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
So,
and look, I mean, in general, someone like Feldman, once in the system, is probably going to either confess or, whatever, like, there's any number of things we can imagine happening. The as much as Marshall Teague makes the movie, the detective actor Eddie Wilde almost derails it. I would have loved. I know we have a lot of character actors in here, and I know that there's a lot of stuff going on that I'm really enjoying, and glad I've seen this movie. Glad I own this movie. We'll watch this movie again. But you can't help wishing that, we got some other weird mid-90s character actor to play that detective role. It would have been like Frank Pesci would have been absolutely perfect, but he was probably making a movie with Fred Williamson in the Philippines. So, you know what I mean? Exactly. Or Italy or somewhere. So, yeah, he was probably making The Big Score or one of those po' boy productions from the mid-90s, which are fantastic, by the way. Check out all of Fred Williamson's po' boy productions, except that 3 days one. Is it 3 Days to a Kill?
3 Days to a Kill, yeah.
Oh, God, that's awful. That's really painful. Talk about a movie that makes absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever. Yeah.
Right. It blows me away because you were talking with Jacobson Hart or Joe Hart about how Bo Svensson didn't seem like he was like all that impressed with Steel Frontier, and it's like he was in 3 Days to a Kill, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, this is the thing. Bo Svensson, and I think I even said it, but Bo Svensson, it's not like Bo Svensson throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s was like doing sterling work. I know everyone was like, well, he was a great character actor in the 70s. Sure, that's his maybe, but by the time he got to work with PM, Like, what else was he doing? I mean, listen, I love all those B movies. I'm not like slagging off the B movies. I'm just saying, stay in your lane, Bo. Like, it's not like you're starring in Jurassic Park or a fucking Mission Impossible franchise. Like, he was just doing straight to video stuff. And good for him. A lot of straight to video stuff sustained a lot of those guys from the 70s. Fred Williamson is a prime example. Robert Forster is another great example. Pam Grier, et cetera, et cetera. So come on, Bo, get off your high horse.
Exactly. When I heard that, I was just like, that's interesting. Like, that's I wouldn't have expected that.
You know who we could have had as a detective in this, which would have made it enjoyably quirky, and who had a history with PM? Michael J. Pollard. Would have been completely bizarre as the detective in this movie. It would have been an added layer of, I'm sorry, what? Pollard is the detective? It would have been.
Can you imagine when you see him show up at the house, right? That very first scene where he shows up at the house, and it's Michael J. Pollard, just like coming in with it. Like, would he have the hat like that he has in Art of Dying or something like that? Like,
no, I mean, Pollard likes to wear a beret, right? Isn't Pollard
the beret?
a big beret fan? He wears a beret in at least 3 or 4 different movies.
Right? Yeah. And to see him act opposite Erin Gray would have been the most amazing thing too. Her and Ted J. Robert trying to make sense of him while he's there taking notes. Like, and just like thinking of all the questions that the detective asked. Well, did he seem depressed lately? Like, imagining Pollard asking that instead of that detective.
Oh, well, did he seem depressed lately? Like looking up or whatever, making his little like eyes that he does like that, and his little like grin and whatever. Yeah. It would have been great. Yeah, but someone like Pollard would have been great. Equally, another Art of Dying alum who does very little in that movie, who could have been in this movie, Sarah Douglas. I would have loved to have seen a female detective. We have Kim in this movie, and we have Erin Gray as the 2 female leads. I would have loved to have seen maybe a couple of other women in here. That would have been cool, and you could have filled that role out in the detective. But anyway, so overall thoughts, I think we've gone through that. Favorite scenes? Do you want to whip through any favorite scenes?
I mean, we've covered most of them at this point, I think. I think the other one is we talked about, so the scavenging that equals fighting on the beach. When Greg, the older brother, is showing what he can do against this other guy where they're fighting each other, he gets kind of low, and the guy goes to swing his foot and kick him, and like you called it, like a Jean-Claude Van Damme face. He makes this kind of Van Damme-ish face, and then he nails him right in the crotch.
Oh, he does a cock chop. He does a cock chop right in the happy place. Yeah. Yes. Yes, that is brutal. In order to win the scavenging fight on the beach, against grown adults who really should know better. Grown adults who are like, we'll give up our bike to a child who we're going to now beat 7 stages shit out of. It doesn't make any sense at all. But okay. But yeah, he does a dong wallop. Yeah.
Right. So I think that would have been the one thing that we didn't cover that he
does a wang chung.
Yeah.
He chungs his wang is what he does. And it's filmed that way as well. Like you see his legs up in a split because he's doing a kick, and you see the brother like palm him right in the dick.
It's like William Riker and Next Generation, just boom. And
he does make a Van Damme Bloodsport face when he does it, which is fantastic. Look, if you're going to steal for the best, and who doesn't love a screaming Van Damme, cock punt to the if it's good enough for Van Damme and Bolo Young, it's good enough for whoever the 2 actors were who played these 2 characters. They were great. I mean, the brother was great. It's almost a shame he had to die, but he was great, and obviously another great martial artist. And I have to say, I love the way that Art Camacho has them do proper martial arts stances. It's not just that they like go into fights from like a standing mode. They properly like do the little hoik up of the pants and stand in the right position and everything like that. I love all that stuff.
It was that was the thing too. So it's very well choreographed. I mean, those fight scenes were really well choreographed. I mean, the other thing that's funny about that is that when Greg shows up, because he's on his bicycle because he couldn't get the car, right? Because his Erin Gray, she wouldn't let him have the car. So he's riding his bicycle and he's up on the kind of the cliff and he sees them down there and he thinks like, oh, something's wrong. And he actually gets down to where the scorpions are. He's like, hey guys, break it up. And they're like, wait, what? Hey guys, break it up? Like, what are you talking about?
There's money riding on this, bud. I got $50 on a motorbike I'm about to win.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, that was all great. I loved that scene. The food fight, obviously, we've talked to that. The Marshall Teague teaching Machiavelli was great. The stomach fight, so there's this whole sequence in the middle of the movie. How is the kid fucked up? Like, what is it again that the kid does that?
So he loses a fight to Ted Jan Roberts in the cafeteria. So they're in the cafeteria after his brother died.
Right.
They go to be like, oh, hey, if anything we can do. And Ted Jan one of them puts his hand on Ted Jan Roberts, like, hey, don't touch me. And they fight. So he's kind of the third guy in the gang. And Ted Jan Roberts almost beats him up. They finally break the fight up.
That's
and
right. So
Marshall Teague is like, you can't get the
Yeah. So next time they're in the dojo, Teague is going to Teague this guy a lesson. He's going to Teague all over this guy. And he really does. I mean, he beats 7 shades of shit out of this kid. How the kid is like not walking. Like, it's funny. Like, Ted Jan Roberts has a massive bruise after the fight with the kid later on. This kid has no visible bruising despite Teague wiping the floor with him repeatedly. And the way the fight ends, this kid, he keeps saying to this kid, like, you've got to get up, you've got to focus, you've got to like work through the pain and fight through the pain and everything else. So this poor kid, who at a certain point I just fuck this and walk out, but apparently not. This kid sees value in this teaching somehow. This kid keeps standing up every time he's knocked down and blah 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 blah. And eventually Teague just stands still. The kid goes to like wail on his stomach. Teague is obviously like tensing his stomach muscles or whatever, and the kid basically repeatedly punches Teague in the stomach until the kid is defeated, until the kid can literally not punch him anymore and falls to the floor. And I'm like, did Teague just defeat an opponent purely by standing still and doing absolute? Did Teague's stomach just win a fight in this movie? And the answer is yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yeah. Teague just stared like at him with the Teague stare. And the combination of the stare and the stomach muscles defeated this poor bastard. And we were hypothesizing last night what would happen if Seagal and Teague squared off. Would Seagal's stomach heft, and I'm being polite, he's a fat bastard, but would Seagal's stomach heft beat Teague's tight, muscular stomach, or would Teague's stomach prevail? That's the question the world wants to know.
Exactly. I mean, you feel like, especially in '94 when the Seagal heft was coming. I mean, yeah, I from Seagal's standpoint, of course, that's part of the reason why he would always kind of frame his movies so that he was always the winner. Yeah. And he also sat a lot in his movies, so it's hard to see if he would stand up to do this. But I think if you did a fair fight, no stunt doubles, Teague would win in a heartbeat. He would just stand there. Yeah. And Seagal would bounce off of him. I think even with the heft, because the heft would create kind of like the big ball kind of where kind of like
a ripple effect as well.
Right,
it would, like ripple, it would resound throughout the body.
And he would just fall over. Yeah,
there wouldn't be much tension to it. There's not much weight behind it. There's weight in front, like there's a lot of weight in front, but there's no heft behind the weight. I imagined last night this wonderful scene where it would all be filmed from shoulders up, and Teague and Seagal would be facing off with each other, and Teague would be doing the menacing stare, the Teague angry grimace, right? And then Seagal would be doing his "did he fall asleep with his eyes open" look, because Seagal facially, once it started to balloon by the mid 2000s. Facially, Seagal just hasn't. I don't think he's raised an eyebrow in 15 years. But he's staring out with a very kind of sleepy stare. Teague is like doing the like menacing, strong thing, and all you hear, you don't see the bellies fighting. Right. All you hear is just a sort of limp of Seagal's belly just flapping against Teague's muscle. Because I don't know why that's funny to me, but it's hilarious.
It's kind of like a rumbling kind of sound. Yeah. Once he hits it, like once it starts to, the slapping happens, once that that middle, the whatever is going on in the stomach, it starts to move, right? And it's like, right?
What you start to see is you start to see rolls roll up Seagal's face. So like a tidal wave, right? It starts at an epicenter and then kind of works its way out, right? And that creates the waves. So if the epicenter is his belly button, the waves like roll out on his body and up his cheeks. And at a certain point, you can just see the cheeks are going. He's still half asleep, of course, but you know.
Of course, and that chocolate donut goatee that he would have in the hair, right? Like kind of the hair,
the Sharpie goatee that he paints on everyone.
Exactly, like everything starts to get a little more disheveled as the waves start to go. Like the hair's coming out a little bit more,
and Teague is nothing's bothering Teague. Teague is just like, I've got this. I've got this.
Right, exactly.
Going down.
Like the rumble. Right? Yeah, for people standing, like whoever the judge is, right? Maybe it's that ponytailed like judge from this movie is the one who's like watching it, going like, "No, you can't take it." Whatever.
Judges, like this is actually happening, and there's like a big spotlight and carry on. Sorry.
Exactly, but I mean, I wonder if you could. You'd have to maybe there'd be a camera there so you could bet on this with your online sports betting, right? You know, like what the odds are, and
yeah,
you could do like in-house betting, yeah.
Yeah, no. Look, it's fine. If anyone can take Seagal down a peg or two, it's Teague.
It's Teague.
And then, lastly, as we close out, let us talk just quickly about that incredible song. Maybe again, I'll play it on the show. But "A Dangerous Place," written by Halfpenny and sung by vocalist Sharon Shax. It's a banger, dude. It's a
Yes.
like mid-90s. It's got kind of feels a bit like Heart, the band Heart.
Right.
So Heart and Wilson Phillips. It's got a very kind of Wilson Phillipsy kind of vibe to it, right?
Right. Yeah. I was thinking my combination was like 90s alternative, like a Juliana Hatfield or Belly or something like that, mixed with like a B-side off Celine Dion's "Where Does My Heart Beat Now" single, right? Like that would be like a Celine Dion B-side that, deep cuts for like the big fans of hers, like, in Quebec or whatever.
And I just, for all our Quebecian fans, for all our French Canadian fans out there, the deep cut of Celine Dion's Canadian output. But no, it's a great song. I love it. I love discovering, because again, I always think to myself, because I make music here on my Mac or whatever, and I know what it takes for me to just bang out a song that like sounds like a song and has multiple instruments on it and whatever. And so the idea that Halfpenny writes not one but two songs for this movie. I think he writes the country and western song that the guard is listening to at the Van Nuys Swamp.
No, it is because it's listed in the credits that he wrote that song as well. Yeah,
disturbance at the Van Nuys Swap Meet, which is my favorite line of the whole movie. I'm like, did we need to know that? Anyway,
no.
But no, I'm going to write a song called "The Break-In at the Van Nuys Swap Meet" because it's such a good.
When they pull the van up and you see "Swap Meet" in big letters on the building, that's good enough. But then when you find out it's the Van Nuys Swamp Meet, right? Like, I don't think it gets much better than that.
No, it doesn't, because the more specific something is, the better it is. You know what I mean? The more detail that there is. Like a lot of the stuff I write, a lot of either the comedy sketches I wrote for the After Movie Diner or some of the intros and some of the bullet points that I do for this show. It's the details. It's not, a funny thing happened. It's like, how specific and, ridiculous can you become? And so Van Nuys Swap Meet, there are 4 words that I don't even know what either any of the words mean, or why you would need a guard to guard it, or why there are a bunch of TVs boxed up. What are they swapping them for? Or are they swapping them for meat? I've no idea. Anyway. So the Van Nuys Swap Meet is fantastic. And yes, the country and western song that he's listening to there and whatever. So the fact that on occasions, the Shotgunner Jones is the famous one from Shotgun. Shotgun!
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Those ones are Shotgun, which is just my such a jam.
Yes.
I so hope if anything comes from this podcast, right, whether we get to make a documentary, whether we get to, travel to locations where they made the movies, whatever it is, my dream would be that one of these companies, Mondo or whatever, who do these new vinyl reissues, finds all the songs that were made for PM Entertainment Films and releases a vinyl record just of the song, and maybe a few like the cafeteria sequence, certain soundtrack bits, like the car chase sequence, the bike chase, car chase sequence in Steel Frontier with the drumming.
Oh yes, yes.
Like just a few like soundtrack clips on a vinyl, dude. I would be so happy. I would be over the moon if they did. I really would. I really would. Anyone listening to this who is like, oh my God, we could do that so easily. I mean, just imagine. It starts with Shotgun of Jones. Like that's the first song on the fucking album. You're like, it can only go up from here.
Oh, yeah. No, I was trying to think of other great ones because Shotgun of Jones is the one that always comes to my mind. Like that's just, after seeing that movie, I'm just like, I don't know that a movie has a better soundtrack.
Well, I mean, A Dangerous Place. I love this song. This is great. Yeah. There was one. It doesn't mention you've got the fucking soundtracks of the Wings Hauser to Art of Dying and Live to Die. I mean, some of the jazz madness that's in that. I mean, that alone could be like a 45 just of the well, they're like the Benny Hill chase sequence from Art of Dying and Living to Die, where it's Benny Hill, but it's done in like esoteric, impenetrable jazz, as opposed to Yakety Sax, which has a melody. Right. It's just yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Can you imagine it? The soundtrack, the PM Entertainment soundtrack. Someone needs to do that, man. Jesus.
Yeah. No, because they're songs, right? I mean, somebody's got to know where those songs are, right? Maybe Halfpenny. Maybe he's got them all somewhere.
Oh,
maybe
I'm reaching out to Halfpenny. You better believe that Halfpenny's on my list of people to talk to. Look, man, stranger fucking things have happened. If Hard Ticket to Hawaii can get a vinyl release, why the hell not? The PM Entertainment Compendium or something would be like, and it's just an anthology of just fucking all the good music that's in PM Entertainment films.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be, that would be kind of an interesting thing to do, a couple of those jazz, those jazz songs from
have them reevaluated by like a whispering radio DJ from like Jazz FM or something, or like the Sirius Jazz channel. And now coming up, sections from Art to Dying. And I sorry, what's it called? Art
of Dying or
the Art of Dying. That's it.
Yeah.
And coming up, we have a few esoteric jazz sections from the movie Art of Dying. And I have to say, some of these really speak to me deep down in my soul, brother. It's a real doo-wop masterpiece that we're about to hear, that really, to some crazy cats playing on this album. And, he goes really in depth into it or whatever. And then he's like, so here we are, sections from Art of Dying. And then,
right. Just like, imagine the announcers being like, coming up here, we've got a song called Who's Putting the Bite on Mitten from the film Living to Die. My favorites. And then like you said,
and now who's putting the bite in mitten? That's great. And and look, they need to reissue Wings Hauser's album. Come on now. We want Wings living right. We need his album back. Because again, you can include in The Art of Dying, when she goes to the Roadhouse, one of Hauser's songs is playing on the jukebox.
That's right.
God, that's right. Imagine walking into a Roadhouse and they have Living Right's album on the jukebox.
Just go up to the bartender with a fistful of cash and just be like, I need all the quarters you got. Like, just, yeah.
But by the way, I am not leaving till we've heard Wings Living Right's album at least 5 times, back to front.
Exactly.
So just everyone just strap in, because this is happening.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. This is what.
Well, that's my dream, sir. And maybe if we talk about it, we manifest it. So let's wrap this up. We're going to do ranking within PM Entertainment films. And then I've not seen any other Ted Jan Roberts, but you're going to rank it within Ted Jan Roberts movies. And then we're going to head out, because we're coming up to the 2-hour mark. So ranking within PM entertainment films. So you go ahead first.
So yeah, I've got this number 12. Now I did have this a little bit higher recently. I had actually, before I saw Steel Frontier, I had this at 9. But Steel Frontier I put ahead of it. I think Living to Die, just talking about that one, I still kind of, and then Riot, I've realized I can't have the 3 Daniels R's above this one, but 12, is where I have this. Now, I've only seen 2 other Ted Jan Roberts movies. So Hollywood Safari, this is definitely much better than Hollywood Safari. And I do like this one better than Magic Kid. That's the only other one I've seen of his. So I still got to see.
So this is
Power
top
Within.
Out of the 3. This is top of the
exactly.
3.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to know if Magic Kid 2 is probably the next one I'll see, or Power Within. I don't think that either of those. I can't imagine them being better than this one.
No, I mean, The Power Within, I'm interested because it's got Zabka, and it might be more within the tone of this one, whereas Magic Kid is obviously going to be more goofy and childish. I'm aware of that already. I have to say, these rankings are becoming really difficult because essentially I just love all these movies.
Yes.
It definitely, look, it's not in my top 10. It can't be in my top 10. It may eke into the top 15 is how I'm feeling about it. So that's kind of where it is now, probably in the 13, 14, somewhere around there kind of spot. I need to go back into my Letterboxd and really, really think again about my rankings and my listings for this, because, you know, we were talking about the Tracy Lords one that I just watched, Intent to Kill. And again, that was a surprise, man. I did not expect that to be as enjoyable and as whacked out and fun and like a feminist Death Wish movie and everything else. Like, I didn't expect that to be that good. You know, I'd seen A Time to Die and been like, it's fine, it's good, it's a decent thriller, but it's, you know, it's certainly not making the top 20. And then suddenly Intent to Kill is in my top 15 because I really enjoyed it. But, you know, then, you know, these movies, though, Intent to Kill and A Dangerous Place, are they as good as the 3 R's? Are they as good as Steel Frontier? Are they good as T4, Zero Tolerance, you know, Ring of Fire 3? Once you start like listing these movies out, you're like, they're not really. They're probably, you know, in the same way that they're kind of mid-era PM, because they're between the earlier Grindhouse ones and the later Glossier ones. They're sort of mid-range. So they're, you know, if there are, whatever there are, 75, 80, 90, I don't even know how many PM movies there are, but let's say there's 90 of them. It's in the top 20 probably, or in the top 25, somewhere like that. And it'll shuffle around as I watch and rewatch all these movies. But and I don't know whether people care about the rankings or not. I just think it's good to kind of let people know, because PM Entertainment, if you've never come across it before, or if you come across it and you look at all the titles, you might, you know, I certainly was like, well, for every 4 or 5 great ones that I would watch one and I'd go, okay, you know, a bit of a shame that it didn't hit me like those other ones. What I'm finding doing the podcast and branching out and doing the Ted Jan Roberts one and like figuring out Steel Frontier and various other ones that I hadn't come close. Pure Danger was another one that I put on. I know we haven't covered it yet for this show, but is another one that I'm just like, well, wait a minute. If it's this good, like if Pure Danger is this good, is that in my top 5 now? Like it's, you know what I mean? It's pretty difficult. So that's where it's at. All I'm saying is that for dipping my first toe into the river of Roberts, this was a very, very welcome, warm, pleasant river, clean, unpolluted, and full of Marshall Teague stomach muscles.
Yeah, for sure. Now I actually put this one above Ring of Fire 3 just because I really like the beginning of Ring of Fire 3 and the end of it, but the middle kind of bogged down a bit for me. And this kind of was a more consistent, you know, even though it doesn't have the highs that Ring of Fire 3. So, but you know, that again, well, you could, you know, you can make a case for why you like Ring of Fire 3 better as well. It's like you said, it's like you're almost kind of splitting hairs, or as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys would say, circumcising mosquitoes. Like that's what it is.
Well, look, PM continues to deliver. PM continues to show us the way, and it continues to say, listen, a film doesn't need to be pigeonholed by one genre. Have 78 genres in one film. And don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Throw in a Van Patten and a Teague, and you're good to go, my friend. Anyway, Matt, thank you ever so much again for being on this episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast. Round it out. Let people know where they can find you online, social medias, and all that good stuff. And we will close this out.
Yeah, so dtvconnoisseur.blogspot.com. That's where you can find everything. I am on Facebook, DTV Connoisseur, Blue Sky, Instagram, and then, of course, the podcast, DTVC Podcast. You can find that on all the major podcatchers. So definitely, subscribe, check that out as well. John was on recently. It was a really fun episode on the 2 bedroomized films. So, yeah, definitely check that out, too.
Yeah, and I'll be posting that on aftermoviediner.com under my guest spots page once I have any time to do any house cleaning when it comes to my internet presence. But thanks ever so much for this, man.
You are now leaving the PM Entertainment Podcast.
How many fatal errors did we witness today?
Well, hesitation, sir.
Good. He who hesitates is dead. Taylor.
Mercy, sir.
Right. If you spare an opponent today, he will not spare you tomorrow.
To spare an enemy is to make a friend. That's what my old sensei teaches.
Those are the words of a loser.
My friends say the pain will subside, but it cuts me deep, just like a knife. I seem to remember one thing that you said: the heart is a muscle, it's all in your head. The world is on fire.